Hey everyone, just a quick FYI. Name tags are in the back. If you guys could grab them, that'd be awesome.
Yes, you can try one and I'll continue. Oh,
I call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Good evening. Adams. Akers.
Here.
Alberts.
Yeah, here.
Anders.
Here.
Arnaldi. Bergston.
Here.
Bowler. Bickerud.
Here.
Cafera. Dinez.
Here.
D. Moranville.
Here.
Elliott. Flores.
Here.
Fuller. Garcia.
Here.
Garrity.
Here.
Grandy. Hendrickson.
Here.
Hyen.
Here.
Hughes.
Here.
Jackson. Jewell.
Here.
Kallenberger.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Maples.
Here.
Markle.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
McDermott. McIntyre.
Here.
Mertens. Meyer.
Here.
Nichols.
Yeah.
Nedry.
Here.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Ogren.
Here.
Orth. Penny.
Here.
Papoon.
Here.
Pitts.
Here.
Pruitt. Rostenpour.
Here.
Swanson. Tedrow.
Here.
Thomas. Tuttle.
Here.
Valdez.
Here.
Works. Zwick. Harp.
Here.
Haynes. Bothwell.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Dahl.
Here.
Grover.
Here.
Hornung.
Here.
Horton. Hodgkinson. Houghton. Jabin.
Here.
Keekly. Karanja. Kellerman.
Here.
King.
Here.
McAdam.
Here.
Malmberg. McCandless.
Here.
Meinhardt. Peckert.
Here.
Pelton. Putnam. Roth.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Savarino. Shao.
Here.
Chumlin.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here.
Whitmer.
Here.
Witzke. Zyke. All right, thanks, guys.
All right. With that, our next item on the agenda is open period. There's no one on the agenda. Is there anyone who'd like to speak during first open period? If not, we'll keep rolling. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Papoon. Is moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections, the minutes will be approved as emailed out. With that, we'll move into announcements. Announcements were sent out with the agenda. Just a quick reminder from last week, there's 2 more candidates for the provost search that'll be coming to campus. So the dates and times of events that you can attend are included in the agenda. I'd highly encourage you to attend some of those events and learn about those 2 candidates. Also, the judicial branch still looking for their next group of members. So if you have anybody in mind that you know that might be interested, feel free to sign them up and get them involved. Also, proxies today, Pitts for Dahl, and interns that are excused are Gammon and Karamali. Also, SGA Member of the Week this week goes to the Privilege Fee Committee Vice Chair Jansen Penny. So, Chair Sarah Neatery was unable to be at a meeting, and Jansen stepped up to that as they're working as they're working through the Student Health Services Review. So, with that upcoming events calendar, I guess big thing next week is the last week before spring break. So regular meetings are scheduled for that. One quick note, on Tuesday the 13th, there's a College of APD College Council meeting. They've already voted to approve their fees, so that meeting will instead be a tuition and free strategy committee meeting there Tuesday at 6 p.m. And with that, our quote of the week this week comes from Jane Goodall. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of a difference you want to make. So, awesome. Next on the agenda is commendations. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 53? Chair Neatery?
I move resolution 53.
It is moved and seconded to consider Resolution 53. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 171853, commendation to Wildcat 91.9 KSDB-FM by Privilege Fee Committee. Whereas 3 students earned national recognition at the 2017 to 2018 Broadcast Education Association Festival of Media Arts for their work at Wildcat 91.9 KSDB-FM, KSDB, Kansas State's student-run radio station. Whereas the competition received more than 1,500 entries. Whereas Stephen Asper, freshman in social work, Dylan Sawyer, December graduate in civil engineering, James Copeland, senior in mass communications, won first place in the sound engineering and production category for their work on the KSDB Classroom Series with a recording of the band Gecko from Kansas City. Whereas the Classroom Series is a recurring production on KSDB featuring bands from across Kansas and the United States who come to Manhattan to perform live on air from KSDB's McCain Auditorium Studios. Whereas KSDB operates 24/7, 365 from McCain Auditorium, broadcast live on 91.9 FM, online at ksdbfm.org, and on iOS and Android, TuneIn, Amazon Echo, and Campus Cable 42.1. Whereas KSDB is advised by Vern Werka, professor of journalism and mass communications, and whereas KSDB is funded in part by the KSDB privilege fee. Be it resolved that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association commends and congratulates KSDB for its hard work and effort that resulted in first place honors at the 2017 to 2018 Broadcast Education Association Festival of Media Arts. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, a copy of this resolution shall be sent to all team members and their families. Professor of Journalism and Mass Communication, Vern Werka, Interim Director of the A.Q. Miller School of Journalism and Mass Communications, Gene Folkers, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Amit Chakrabarty, and University President Richard B. Myers.
Are there any corrections to Resolution 53? Director Kuchera.
I believe it's referred to as just simply 91.9 KSDB FM, but I'll check on that and I'll get back to you on that.
Sounds great. Further corrections?
I know that they're also called Wildcat 91.9 FM.
Are there any questions for the author? If not, first right to debate.
Yeah, so they just came for their review in privilege fee this year, and I think it's awesome that we're already seeing the results of student funds going to really good use, and our students at KSDB taking first in a competition with over 1,500 entries. I think that's really awesome.
All right. Is there any debate in the negative? Further debate in the positive? Any debate at all? If not, is there a motion? Chair Nordstrom?
I move to approve this resolution unanimously. Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve Resolution 53 unanimously. If there are no objections, Resolution 53 will be approved unanimously. With that, we'll move into committee reports. Sorry, we can applaud for them. Yep, great job. Committee reports were included with the agenda. A pretty busy week across all of our committees. As the executive committee considered a couple bills, and then travel allocations and on-campus allocations heard their last requests. Are there any questions on any of the committee reports included with the agenda? If not, are there any committee chairs that would like to give an additional report? Chair Kelly.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So tonight on your agendas, we'll be introducing a bill that was authored by the Special Committee on Membership that looks at proposed changes to the Kansas State University Student Governing Association intern program. Get a clicker.
We don't have a clicker. So I'll take a look. It's gone.
Two microphones. All right, so here are a couple components of the current SGA intern program. Consists of up to 35, interns interested in Student Governing Association. Applicants are interviewed and selected by a selection panel. Interns serve until the end of the current Senate term, and interns are assigned to a committee rotation.
And then we're just going to cover some of the terminology that'll help kind of clarify what we'll talk about after this. So phase one, that's kind of what you would think of as the AFP program that's been happening for the past couple of weeks. So each course is a set of 5 informational sessions. So essentially what we did this past semester was one course of phase one. And then each session are those single informational meetings that the students are going to find out more information about SGA. And then phase two would be what you think of more like what the intern program structure is now. So there'd be a mentor program where they're paired up with SGA members in the branch that they're interested in or in the activities that they're interested in. And then also a branch rotation where they're rotating on the standing committees, visiting a cabinet meeting, as well as a mock hearing from judicial branch or something that kind of gives them the same information that those activities would.
So a brief overview of some of the mechanisms and components of this program. It will be open to all students. No application or selection process will be involved. There will be an opportunity for any student to enter this program at any point during the term. It will be split up, like Jordan kind of talked about, into phase 1 and 2. There will be attendance requirements that are the same as the intern program now. And there will be mandatory weekly meetings for all interns.
So touching on the structure of these two phases. So like I said, phase one is very much like the AFP program that was this past semester. So students that just are interested in SGA, they want to learn more, get a little bit more engaged in what we do. So they start coming to these different sessions. So there's 5 of them. A majority is determined by 3 out of 5. So if they're coming to those sessions and they complete that course and they decide, okay, I want to continue, and they've been to 3 out of the 5, they would then go into phase 2. And that is where they're set up with that branch rotation and the SGA mentor program. They're going to these weekly meetings with the other intern coordinator. So they're still getting a lot of that relationship-based offering that the intern program gives right now, but still allowing students to kind of get engaged throughout the year.
So this graphic might need some work, but it kind of lays out the timeline for the first phase. So again, any student can enter this program at any point during the term. There will be these 3 courses. I kind of try to go through and map out next Senate's term with the dates. So this is what it could look like, right, with 5-week sessions in each course. So the first course will be September 13th to October 11th. The second course will be October 25th to November 29th. The third course will be January 17th to February 14th. And this third course will operate very similarly to the Accelerated Fellowship Program that we presented about last week. And again, that filing deadline is the 15th.
Okay, so right now we have the 2 intern coordinators that are working on programming the intern program together. So with this change, it would kind of separate out those duties a little bit more, so they're a little bit more focused into each part of what the intern program would be. So one, helping coordinate phase 1, where they're determining what those 5-week courses would be, kind of the different educational sessions, what they're going to cover in those meetings, who they're going to bring in, all that kind of stuff, as well as just making sure those interns are learning the knowledge that they need to be effective members within SGA, and they're set up for success whether or not they choose to continue on with the program. And then the phase 2 coordinator doing a lot of the similar things that Annie and Hannah do this year, as far as coordinating branch rotations between the committees, holding the weekly meetings where they might continue to bring in new speakers, but also offering that cabinet rotation in judicial branch as well. And then really having a focus on relationship building within each of the interns, either one-on-one or within the class, because we felt that like that was a really important thing to maintain with this change.
So lastly are a couple shared responsibilities that these intern coordinators will have.
Time for the speakers has expired. Is there a motion to extend, Senator Hughes?
I move we extend speaker's time by 10 minutes.
It's moved and seconded to extend speakers' time by 10 minutes. If there are no objections, you've got 10 more minutes.
Thanks, Sam. So again, lastly, the shared responsibilities will be the marketing of the SGA intern program, the execution of the first course, as there would not be phase 2 interns during the first course. So we kind of talked about how that would be pretty vital for them to share that, and then engaging and educating the interested body. I'd love to stand for questions if you all have any.
Intern Bothwell.
So I guess the one question that popped to my mind immediately was, so you said there was not going to be a cap on numbers. I was interested in how, like, your thoughts on that and foreseeing that. Like, I'm all open for the idea of everyone coming, but just like, we do have a space of limits, so like, just curious on that.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the question was the numbers, right? There's not a cap. So we kind of talked about that in committee a lot, right? How do we handle that logistically? So I think the benefit of this program is that we would naturally weed out, I guess, for lack of a better term, individuals who were not interested in SGA. We would start with the bigger class, obviously, with that first session and that first course, and we would naturally have people dropping and saying, SGA, you know, me taking an active role in SGA is not necessarily what I want to do with the rest of my year, right? So I think we would naturally find that good number of individuals who would want to serve in that phase 2 part of that program, which is that long term. Hope that answers your question.
Further questions? Sorry, I can't see your name tags. Senator Garcia, there we go.
Could you go back to the slide with the timeline? I think it's on there, but I know it's like a draft, so like, is the phase 1 part gonna be like, is the phase 2, I guess, gonna be like consistent, and then the phase 1 are gonna be like different ones? I don't know if that was a good question, but like, so there's like 3 different courses, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So is the phase 2 gonna be like one time, and then the other ones are gonna be like kind of separate, different chances, I guess?
Yeah, so basically what will happen is everyone that goes through the first course, phase 2 won't be going on during that. So first course happens, then those students have the option to continue into phase 2. And while phase 2 has started, the second set is going into their second course. So they have to go through those 5 weeks. And then if they choose to do so, then they can join into phase 2 for that last half. And then the third course, they have the filing deadline. So if they choose, they have like, I think it's 3-4 weeks in between the filing deadline and the end of the term. So if they wanted to continue, they could. But essentially just like a fluid program, whereas you go through phase 1 and then gradually would add in more as you go through the year. And something we also talked about in committee was that there might be more at the beginning, but then less throughout the year as students find other interests or things like that. So, question.
Further questions? Yep, you. Sorry.
Carpenter.
Intern Carpenter, there we go.
So you mentioned that you're not going to have them fill out a formal application. That's a really interesting take on that. Are you guys going to have them just email you if they're interested, or fill out kind of an informal org sync form, or how will that work?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the way that we handled it in the Accelerated Fellowship Program, I think that it's an interesting model for us to explore, is like a K-State 360 swipe, right? And it's really just a registration. What we did is we asked them their email, their name, their major, just that basic information so that we could document their attendance, right? And then that K-State 360 swipe, as you probably know, keeps track of who went to each session.
Further questions, Caucus Leader Pitts?
So currently with the AFP program, they sit out in the foyer and listen to how Senate works and have lessons, about Senate. And so with this, would they be sitting in Senate sessions, or would they be doing similar to what the AFP program does now?
So with the AFP program, kind of the intent was that at first, students would sit in the viewing area, right? So that some of the student centers could explain the agenda, the kind of the inner workings, and then, yeah, like you just said, work in the Senate.
So in the first course, would they be doing what you did with AFP out there at first? So they have like some context when they're coming in, like how would that work?
So we talked in committee about having kind of an option for both. So allowing students that wanted to come in the room and sit next to a senator and really just be engaged right off the bat, they could do so. If they wanted to sit out in the back, we would have chairs set up where if they felt like they wanted to ask questions kind of behind the scenes before they got in this room, they could do either one. So kind of, yeah, both.
Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani?
So hypothetically speaking, let's say this went into action. Do you believe that this is something that like anyone can be able to administer, or do you think it may need somebody who has been involved in the creation of this process to administer the first change of this new structure?
I think it could be done either way. I mean, there's benefits to having someone that's been involved in the conversation before to be in that position, but I think just the same, you can have that conversation with someone, giving them the background info and the history of the committee and what we've all talked about all year for them to be effective just in the same way. So either.
Yeah, I'll just add by saying the Special Committee on Membership will author a report, if you will, just like the committee last term, and we will definitely be giving that transition report to who would be the next intern coordinators.
Time.
Time for questions that expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Hine?
I move you extend this time for questions by 5 minutes.
It is moved and seconded to extend by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, you got 5 more minutes. Further questions, Senator Hine?
So you mentioned that the third course would resemble a little bit the AFP. So is it different material in all 3 courses, or does it repeat it each time, I guess?
Yeah, so the information in all 3 courses will repeat.
Okay, so it's like the same course, just 3 times?
Correct.
Okay, and then follow up. Would a student who hears about this, like let's say after 2 meetings has started in the first course, would they be asked to wait until the second course comes around to start their own, like their journey to Senate? Or like how does that work, I guess?
So like, are you saying if they started in the last 2 sessions?
Yeah, like can they come at any point in the course, or do they have to start at the beginning of a course, I guess?
Just like I had in that previous slide, anytime, right, during any course. two previous, I think. Yeah, right there, right? Opportunity for interest at any point in the course, in the term. I think that just like education works, like in higher ed, right? We get the information in the classroom, and then in that phase 2, we apply that information. The intent behind that majority attendance, right, in the courses is that they have the tools to equip them for that phase 2, right? So I think as long as they attend 3 of those sessions and identify that they do have the interest to, continue on to the second term, I think that that's enough justification to allow them to do so.
Senator Hughes?
So back to kind of like the integrating them into Senate. Currently, interns have the ability to make motions and have speaking rights. How is that going to be carried over into this new intern program?
Same thing. Make motions and have speaking rights.
Senator Tuttle?
Under this model, how many interns would be like feasible to have at one time?
I mean, honestly, I think there are a little over 120 that applied this year for the intern program, and if 120 came to the AFP or the first phase 1 part of it, we would find a way to accommodate them. If we needed to have them in a separate room where they're watching the recording, they can see Senate that way because there's not enough room in here, we'll do it. I think the one thing that we want to make sure that happens with this program is we're educating as many students as possible that want to learn more about Senate. So if that means it's 100, if that means it's 200, if that means it's 10, we'll find a way to make it work.
Chair Andrus?
With the allowing them to enter at any point, probably going to make sure that they are getting not the same information. Like if they enter in the programs at like the second to last session for one, and making sure that they don't get the exact same information again if they have to continue on during the second course. I guess I'm just not really seeing that.
Yeah, so again, like each course, right, will have designated sessions for each topic, right? So very similar to how the AFP worked, right? Like the first section, for example, is an overview. The next session is the legislative branch. So let's say they came in the second to last session, right? So I don't know what, October 4th or whatever, right? And then they stayed for the next session. They would not receive that same education if they went to the first session of the second course. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just follow up. Do you feel like they would then feel like they might be behind if they jump in the middle of like one course rather than like having it set? I mean, I don't know which way is the right way or wrong way. I'm just curious.
No, it's a great question. Bless you. Sorry. I think the beauty of the program that the special committee on membership administered this semester was that there wasn't necessarily continuity between the sessions, if that makes sense, right? Like one session is legislative, we can debate, we can do this, we can do that, and then the next session was executive branch, writing our own, campus initiatives or whatever, right? So I really don't think there is that continuity, and I really don't think that they'll have that feeling of missing out.
Caucus Leader Rostenpour?
I was just gonna have you bring that up.
Okay,
cool. Further questions? Director Binaban.
So first course, no phase 2. Starting second course, we have phase 2 that continues on until the end, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have to have completed at least 3 of the sessions within the course to go on to phase 2.
That's correct.
Okay, so can we go to the breakdown of phase 2? How is that going to be broken down throughout the rest of that time so that it's like, do they not get to have the branch rotation, or is that all happening simultaneously at the same time? Like, how do they integrate into that if it's already been happening?
So the idea is basically that an intern comes in, you add them to the bunch. So even if they're coming in after that second session or second course, then they're just kind of, you set them up with a mentor, you add them in. They might miss out on maybe you've already gone to judicial as an intern class, but they would still have all those other aspects, the committee rotation, all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of taking them as they get out of these sessions and putting them into, integrating them into the phase 2.
So like realistically, let's say they find out about it, they go through the second course, and then I think it ends around the time when we have dead week and finals for the first semester. they would come in the next semester and continue on from there in those
Yep.
areas.
So that's like what the job of that second intern coordinator is to do, is just coordinating all of those activities with those extra interns that are filtering into phase 2.
I guess the only thing I would worry about is how much would have gotten done during that.
I think that question sounds a little debate-like.
Sorry. That's my question. Like, do you guys have a plan for exactly what happens, like, or is that going to be figured out? Like
In phase 2, what
in
happens?
phase 2 of the dates of when different things will happen in rotation, so that does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I'll refer to caucus leader Rustenpour.
So my thought process on it is, if you get any education in SGA and you do any rotations, that's better than nothing, which is what the current structure gives us. If you didn't get in it right at the beginning, you don't get any education in SGA, formal education.
Time.
Time for questions is expired. Is there a motion to extend? If not, thank you all. Are there further committee reports? If not, we'll move to directors' reports. There are some directors' reports included in the agenda. Are there any directors that would like to add to their report? Director Kuchera?
You're going to hear from me enough later on tonight, so I'll bounce through 3 things. First, on your agenda, there are 2 surveys, and we really need your participation on those. There's the committee survey, the position survey. At this point, we only have 25 participants in the committee survey, so please take the time to fill that out. We will actually extend the time that survey is open until spring break, because it's really important that we get those narratives so we can share those out to people who are considering committees. Also, Director Moore, Chief of Staff Keel, and I had a conversation with Director Carrie Keller over at the Career Center. We're exploring different ways that we can make the university-wide career fair more accessible to students. And we're finding that class and class commitments is a significant barrier to keeping students from the career fair. So we're looking for people who are interested from different colleges, college caucus leaders to partner with us as we go and we talk with deans and as we try to hopefully make the career fair more accessible to students. Last thing, I was in a meeting earlier today with Director McKittrick, Chief of Staff Keel, and a bunch of other people trying to figure out ways that we can let students know about the student services that are available on campus, because at this point there's no sort of communication of what those services are, except for you're hit with a lot of information at orientation, and then there's really no follow-up. So if you are interested in trying to help promote student services and help identify what are best practices for reaching students when it comes to that, feel free to reach out to me and I'll get you connected to those conversations. Hopefully we can have some sort of a solution in place by the end of the semester, fingers crossed. So at this point, I'd love to stand for any questions you have.
Questions for Director Kuchera? If not, further directors' reports. Director Krutz?
Yes. So, in case anyone read my director's report, I had an update on the gun bill, which in the Kansas legislature, HB 2042, I believe it is. So it had passed the House with 2 amendments. One, which would lower the age to conceal carry in the state of Kansas to 18. The other, which would require anyone wanting to conceal carry on a Kansas college campus to have a permit and training. So that went to this Senate Fed and State Affairs Committee, and as of today, they worked that bill in committee today, and they stripped both amendments. So basically, if this bill passed out of the committee, it now goes to the Senate as a whole, and then it will have to pass again without the amendments in the House. So basically, no changes to campus carry legislation in the state of Kansas. Now, this could come up again. It could be, Jack, you're shaking your head. It's not
No,
going to
I
happen.
was just-
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, oh, you're like shaking your head in disapproval. So it could come up again. It could be attached on the floor as an amendment. So we're not out of the woods yet, but I mean, this is a step in a sideways direction. So there was an amendment that we liked and an amendment that we didn't like, and both were stripped. Any questions?
Caucus Leader Rostenpour.
What is the original bill?
No idea. Has nothing to do with. I'll defer to Jack.
It's reciprocity for licensures. So like, if I get a license in Oklahoma, it'll work. Or if my Kansas license, which I don't have, but would work in Oklahoma, or other way around.
Concealed carry license?
Concealed carry license.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other questions?
Further questions? Senator Hughes.
What was the bill number again?
HB 2042.
Senator Martin.
This probably will be directed to Jack, since I think he knows a little bit more, I guess. But so for states like Texas, the concealed carry age is 18. Would this bill allow an 18-year-old who has a concealed and carry license in Texas to conceal and carry in Kansas?
No.
No, because it's still, yeah, I mean,
It's just making sure that it has nothing to do with age. It's just making the regulatory barriers. So if there are any little changes in laws, age is not one of those. Age is a pretty big deal.
I guess candidly, it's a pro-gun bill.
Yeah.
They wanted a vote on that. Does that make sense?
They wanted to pass it, and by requiring universities to requiring universities to have permits, that would have effectively killed the bill with a lot of conservatives. Yeah. Any
Further
other
questions?
Let me clarify. It's a vote for the NRA. Does that? Yeah.
It's a re-election year.
Yeah, it's a re-election vote.
Further questions? If not, further director's reports. Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
Hey guys, so early on this week I sent out an email with the demographic survey. So if you guys could just fill out that, I just sent out an email with the link. Not many people have filled it out. It's mainly for senators and people in the legislative committee. So if you could do that, that would be really awesome.
Questions for Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani? If not, further director's reports. Student Body President Ayers.
I'll pull it up. Let's hear it. Great. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. If anybody hasn't seen that video, let me know. I'll show it to you after Senate. Okay, a couple quick things. First of all, provost search interview or provost search candidates. We have two more left. We had two good meetings with our first two this week, and then our second two next week. So candidates next week are Dean Floros here at K-State, and Kimberly Espy. She's the senior vice president for research at University of Arizona. So there wasn't a great turnout for students at the SGA and GSC session, and so I'm kind of trying to I'm going to write names down of people who think they can attend, and I'll send you an email reminding you, because I know the catch-all sometimes doesn't work super well. So please raise your hand if you can attend the meeting with Dean Floros. That is Monday the 12th at 8:15 a.m. in the Ekdahl room of APD. Remy and Megan. Sorry to do this. I just want a little better turnout. Carlos. All right. Got it. Cool. Thank you. That's a good crew. And then Kimberly Espy is on Tuesday the 13th at 8:45 in the Union, room 227.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yep. Kimberly Espy is at 8:45 a.m. on Tuesday the 13th in Union, room 227. All right. Tendai is over there. Got it. All right, gotcha. Cool. All right, thanks so much. Unfortunately, that's not all. Other thing I want to give an update on is Tuition and Fee Strategies Committee. So I wanted to clarify, there's a Collegian article, and we didn't have good communication with them on kind of a new process. So I want to clarify. Olivia reached out to them to kind of clarify what was going on. But with the new process we have in Tuition and Fee Strategies Committee this year, it's set up where we have college tuition committees that make the vote on the fee proposals, and then TFSC's job is to review that the college tuition committee, the CTC, is informed and was able to ask questions and was considering anything needed to consider. We've had some good discussions. So I want to be clear in saying that it's the college tuition committees that have voted on the fees. It's not necessarily TFSC's vote. Does that make sense? So it's not, TFSC does not vote on the merits of the plan. TFSC will vote on whether or not they follow the process, and we're going to talk about that on Tuesday at 6 p.m. in CSI. But I would let you know that the College of Engineering College Tuition Committee passed the College of Engineering surcharge proposal increased by $15 on a 12 to 6 to 0 vote. And then the Architectural Plan and Design passed the $15 increase to College of Architectural Plan and Design on an 8 to 0 vote. So like I said, the process now is that those will come before, or those votes, we'll talk about them in TFSC on Tuesday. Amongst just the core group of TFSC, we'll talk about if the process is followed correctly. If not, what can we do to fix that? What are the recommendations do we have? And TFSC can give some anecdotal, or otherwise like commentary in our report to the president. However, the vote does happen in the college, closer to where the students are paying for that, which is a change that we talked about this year. So other things, the Student Advisory Committee, which is the Committee of Student Body Presidents in Kansas, released a press release yesterday announcing that we had filed our motion to file an amicus brief, which is something I've talked about a couple times up here. But it's the argument that we're making is that in this court case about K through 12 education, that higher ed needs to be considered as part of that. It's gotten some pretty good traction so far. I got an article in the Pico Capital Journal, and it was in Hoover's report. So for those KS Ledge fans out there like James and Lacey, that's and Sarah, sorry Sarah, that's a cool thing. So I was excited to see that. I think hopefully it gets some conversation going as we enter into the last round of this court case. All right, Mr. Kelly, you want to come help me with this last part? So brief kind of background of this. Ryan was appointed the chair of the so it's part of the Student Advisory Committee, like I said, the Board of Regents Committee. We charged, for the first time I think there's ever been a subcommittee of that group. We charged a diversity inclusion task force. Ryan's the chair of that. It's duly appointed by the student body president and the chief diversity officer of the university. So all the different schools, all 7 schools in K-Board have a representative. And so they've been meeting. And one of the core tenets of what we wanted that group to get together to do is to look at ways in which we can improve communication at K-Board around diversity and inclusion, and really try to move the needle on some of those initiatives, do some idea sharing, things like that.
Time for speaker has expired. Is there a motion to extend Cox Leader Rossenport?
I move we extend the speaker's time by 10 minutes.
Love you, buddy.
If there are no objections, you got 10 more minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. So, and one of the critical components of that is getting the chief diversity inclusion officers together. So, if you want to get started on this, I'm going to pull up that. Well, I'm going to pull up the org chart.
Oh, gotcha.
So, all right, what this is, it just kind of just shows you the setup of the graph. Oh, there it is. Cool. Right? Ryan, where'd it go?
It's right above that. Should be.
Like me mad. Oh, there it is. Okay. So,
That's fine, Joe.
this is really bothering me. All right, so I don't know if you can read that or not, but basically, you've got here the whole regent system and the way that kind of works. So the council presidents, under there we have Council of Chief Academic Officers, which is Provost Mason, Council of Chief Business Officers, Cindy Bontrager, Government Relations, Sue Peterson, and then Council of Chief Research Officers, Dr. Dorhout. So with that, that's kind of the context of this proposal. So Just want to make sure everybody's kind of aware of how that process, how that system is set up. All right.
All right. So first of all, I want to make this very clear that this is not a student senate resolution or bill. Yeah, I just use the template, right? So I'll kind of read through the whereas clauses a little bit. So first of all, it's a proposal to amend the Kansas Board of Regents policy manual concerning the addition of a Council of Chief Diversity Officers by the SAC Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion. So whereas the mission of KBOR is to pursue measurable continuous improvement in the quality and effectiveness of the public post-secondary educational system in Kansas while expanding participation for all qualified Kansans. To achieve that mission, the board will demand accountability, focus resources, and advocate powerfully. Whereas the mission of the Kansas Public University and College System is to meet the educational needs of a diverse population and multifaceted society by providing teaching, research, and service appropriate to the respective missions of its institutions. Whereas Chapter 1, Section A, Subsection 4 of the Kansas Board of Regents Policy Manual prescribes board standing committees to, quote, consider matters relating to academic affairs, fiscal affairs, facilities, and policy and procedure, and the Council of Presidents to make recommendations to the board on general policy affecting all state universities. Established councils reporting to the Council of Presidents, kind of like Jack just talked about, currently include the Council of Chief Academic Officers, Council of Business Officers, and the Working Group of Title IX Coordinators. Whereas the Kansas Board of Regents Office of Academic Affairs has primary responsibility for issues related to policy and activities that further the academic mission of system institutions and delineates the Michael Tilford Conference. Whereas the Michael Tilford Conference provides an opportunity for faculty, staff, and administrators at Kansas Board of Regents institutions to approach diversity in higher education by examining the challenges and opportunities in Kansas. Whereas the conference meets annually aiming to inspire awareness of multiple dimensions of diversity, related practices of inclusion, and the transformation of higher education in Kansas. Encourage participation in workshops to learn about challenges and strategies for teaching diverse populations on Kansas, and to provide an atmosphere by which to share passions for teaching and interacting with students from all backgrounds. And whereas in order to adequately address the needs of an ever-increasing diverse population of Kansans, a consistent statewide body of chief diversity officers is vital in fulfilling the mission of the Kansas Board of Regents, as well as that of the Kansas Public University and College System. So Jack, if you can just scroll to the very bottom. I'll just briefly talk about the proposal itself. So what's being proposed is the Council of Chief Diversity Officers. The council consists of the Chief Diversity Officers of each state, university, and reports to the Council of Presidents. The chairperson is is from the same institution as the chair of the Council of Presidents. The Council of Chief Diversity Officers' official functions are to, one, consider matters affecting equity and inclusion at each university and inform the Council of Presidents either at the request of the Council of Presidents or on the Council of Chief Diversity Officers' own initiative. Two, share information, experiences, and expertise in order to foster more robust operations and consistency in the functions performed by all Chief Diversity Officers across the state university system. And three, stand as a statewide advocacy body for traditionally marginalized and underrepresented students, faculty, and staff. And then the last section there, the council shall meet monthly to discuss various issues arising from state and federal regulatory bodies, statutes, and regulations, and recommend to the Council of Presidents suggested strategies and solution to issues related to diversity, and inclusion, and equity.
And so kind of the process for this is that this will be presented on Wednesday to the Council of Presidents. And President Meyer is really on board with this, and he's been really helpful in advocating for this, as is Provost Mason. So he's going to basically carry this forward on behalf of K-State. So, which I think will be really excellent. I think it'll be pretty well received. All right. Questions about anything?
Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
So the position for the Chief Diversity Officer, for example, the one we just recently hired and I've had an opportunity to speak with him, he talked about how part of his job is going to try to make sure he includes international students, for example. So the definition of our Chief Diversity Officer and the underrepresented people that they represent, is it the same definition and meaning for the other Chief Diversity Officers across the other universities who have this position?
So no, but I think that's okay because they're all part of the Tilford group, right?
Yeah, so I'll speak a little bit to the Tilford Conference. Ramin and I went to the Tilford Conference at Fort Hays State University this past fall, and it's really just, it's a place where all of these types of faculty and staff come together and talk about what, I guess, diversity and inclusion mean at their institution, right? So kind of to your point, Tendai, I think that there are those conversations that are ongoing between our regent universities. And really what this would do is, I don't know, almost establish some consistency with those conversations and ensure that those conversations happen at least on a monthly occurrence rather than yearly.
Cox Leader Pitts.
I have a couple questions if that's okay. First, I'd like to know, like, do you guys have any gauge on what other universities' perspectives are on this?
On the group?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually discussed. So first of all, it's discussed a couple of years, or 6-7 years ago, and candidly, there was some not strife. I don't want to say strife, but the board didn't quite see eye to eye with administration on a lot of things. Sorry, I'm not trying to paint this horrible picture, but like there was no coming together on this issue to create this when it was proposed last. And so then we start talking about it within the student group and kind of loop President Myers into what they were saying. And so he's brought this up to the Council of Presidents, like without a proposal on the table about doing this, and have committed their support to it. So that's kind of was established in, was that November? I don't remember when it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember when it was, but it was cool because I basically put together this presentation to the board where I was going to go make this grand plea to let us do this. President Myers was like, yeah, we're going to do this Chief Diversity Officer Council. It's like, all right, 4-star general, let's do it. So that's really awesome.
Another question I have is, and I think is it allowed to ask more than one thing?
Yeah, you can ask follow-ups.
Okay, so do they have someone in place? Like, do they have positions similar to that at other universities for a Chief Diversity Officer?
Yeah, and so
Do they already have that, where they would be willing to put them into that committee right away?
yeah, I mean those people exist across the board, and so we've kind of like done a little check of that already, because when we appointed the student representatives, it was in conjunction with your CDO.
Okay, cool. And
So
then-
for us it was Provost Mason at the time, but
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, because we just put in our Chief Diversity Officer, so I wasn't
exactly.
sure if he
Well,
already
okay, so let me clarify something on that, because I think that might be part of your question. Chief Diversity Officer as like a proper noun. Okay, so it's not a job title.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, for example, Dr. Wiley, if this were to be created 2 years ago, or a year ago when she was in the interim role, Dr. Wiley, even though it was interim vice provost for diversity, she would still be the Chief Diversity Officer in the eyes of this board,
Gotcha.
as appointed by the president. So technically, it's not written in. Sorry, one more thing. Technically, student body president is not written into the SAC description. The university president determines who. So it's not, they can't pick anybody, but it's the student leader in that regard. Because my term, student body president, some people it's like ASG president at Emporia State or something like that. So anyway.
Okay, and then finally, one last thing. Do you have a plan for community colleges in this, or is it just for your institutions?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in that the little flowchart deal here, so on the left side of it, for governance items, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, but that Council of Presidents is for regent institutions. This System Council of Presidents is for community colleges, technical colleges.
Plus, so it's regent. So it's like on the left, right? On the left is the 7 4-year institutions, and on the right is the 7 4 years plus representatives from all the different. It's not every single tech and community college has a member that goes to System Council, but it's like, I don't remember what the numbers are, 5 representatives every year go. And so the thing is that like the deliberating body though is the Council of Presidents. It's not the System Council of Presidents. So we're starting with the Council of Presidents and say, you champion this, and then it could be mirrored on the right side, just as we have here. I don't know the structure though of, you know what I mean, candidly, I don't know the structure if it's as robust where there's that point person for all the institutions across the state, non-4 years at least.
Time for the speakers expired. Is there a motion to extend? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
Move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
It is moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, you'll have 5 more minutes. Further questions?
I appreciate your questions, Lacey, by the way.
Chair Bickerud?
So I don't have a really good working knowledge of the committees, but should this committee be established, would there be any sort of funding that goes along with that? To be able to conduct research as a group, to be able to go to conferences, and be able to kind of expand recognizing not only universities that could provide that to them?
That's interesting. I never thought about that. So I know that the only funding that exists now to the group is reimbursements for travel. So like there's not, you know what I mean? There's on behalf of KBOR, other than like the coffee at the meetings, like and reimbursement for travel. There's not any, sometimes that's not even processed. So they're not being cheap. It's just that I don't know how exactly that whole process works. Well, Lacey might know.
Yeah, so I go to those meetings for the government relations officers, and the university pays for lunch and travel. So everything of like.
I don't pay for my lunch, for the record.
Well, yeah, but.
I have to eat a hamburger out of a sack in the basement. It's terrible.
I got Panera.
And they only take quarters. It sucks. Anyway.
So a lot of it is done by the university to put them. So.
Right. Yeah. So that'd be. I mean, what would probably happen is that travel on behalf of that group, like to a conference, would come out of the university's budget.
I would just include, too, just in your question, Glenn, that Tilford conference is something that is paid for by Kansas Board of Regents and sponsored by the Kansas Board of Regents. So that would continue.
Any further questions? If not, thank you both.
Thank you.
Further director's reports, athletics liaison Edwards.
Raise my hand 5 times.
He was doing everybody a favor.
Okay. Couple things. Student passes will go on sale the Monday after spring break. Raise your hand if you are graduating in May. Okay, you can get a pass for K-State as a young alumni if you're within 5 years of your graduation date. That pass only costs $199. That is really cheap. If you go to 2 games, sell the rest, make a profit, half your accounting majors, make some money and go to some games. That's always fun. And then tomorrow at 6, we play the Fake Birds in Kansas City. And then remember on Christmas or Fake Patties, if you see people in red and blue, please wish them well and don't chant things at them. Maybe tell them that they can park wherever on campus, let them get a ticket instead of. No. Good idea. Tell them we waived the texting and driving thing on Saturday. Just don't yell at them. So have fun.
There's a reason why we saved you for last. Are there any questions for Nick? All right. If not, we'll keep moving with our agenda. Next up is approval of the minor allocations. So we have 2 bills up for approval in minor allocations this week. The first is Bill 65, which is a request from the Asian American Student Union. They requested $600 to travel to the Midwest Asian American Student Union Conference March 23rd through 25th in Columbus, Ohio, and were recommended $600. And Bill 66, which is a travel allocation to the Engineering and Medicine and Biology Society, and they requested $300 to travel to their international conference, July 15th through the 22nd in Hawaii, and they were recommended $300. With that, are there any questions or corrections on either of the minor allocations? If not, is there a motion to approve? Intern Bothwell?
I move that we approve the minor allocations.
It is moved and seconded to approve the minor allocations. Is there any debate? Seeing none, if there are no objections, the minor allocations will be approved. With that, we will move into final action. The first piece of legislation up for final action is Resolution 51. Will the author please come forward? Any corrections?
No changes were made.
Awesome. First right to debate.
Please pass this so that way we can fund these entities for the next fiscal year.
Any questions?
Does SAS have any other source of funding?
Yes, so SAS does receive, SAS, which is Scholars Assisting Scholars, they receive funding from the College of Engineering. I want to say it's about 100,000 they receive in support, and I believe it's just like space, copies. I think they even pay for a coordinator.
Further questions? Director Kuchera?
Can you speak to the maximum amount that we can fund priority funding proposals?
Yeah, so according to our bylaws, we have it where in a normal year where we have no budget cuts from the state, we can fund priority funding groups between 80 and 90% of what they were funded the previous year. And then if we have a budget cut, or I guess a budget reduction or a budget cut like we had this past year, we can cut them by as much as we want. That was the bylaws change we passed a couple weeks ago.
Further questions? If not, we will proceed into a vote on Resolution 51.
Is there no debate?
Oh, great point. Is there any debate in the negative on Resolution 51? Caucus Leader Rostenpour.
So last week when this was introduced, I had a couple questions regarding why we were not allocating the total $700,000 when we have a reserve of $411,556. And so I did some math, and we are not allocating $10,276.95, which I know isn't a lot of money when you're considering $700,000. But that just seems kind of weird how we have over half of the budget of the entire SCTE in reserves, but we're not allocating all of the money right now. And I understand there was some discussion regarding the fact that the state might cut that, or there might be little fluctuations, but again, we have over $400,000 in reserves. So I think that we should look at possibly funding some of these entities that asked for more and didn't get more, where we're able to, or something with that, because just putting money that is coming from our, I believe this is our tuition, money that's coming from our tuition to reserves year after year after year and just building up reserves is just silly.
Questions for Caucus Leader Rostenpour? Director Kuchera?
Entities should receive additional funding.
That would be up to the committee.
Further questions? Senator Kelly?
Are you advocating that SCTE pulls from reserves?
No, I'm advocating that we spend all of the money that we're allocated for this year. I think we have enough in reserves. We don't need to add to it.
Further questions? Senator Akers?
So your reasoning is we just need to use all the money, so if, I don't know who can answer this, but if that 10,000 that we haven't allocated, where does that go? Does that just go into the reserves then?
Yes.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Director Kuchera.
So with SCTE, I can speak to the process that the committee went through because I sat on the committee. We looked at each of the proposals in depth of like what was a good program for the committee to fund. And I could walk you through each of these individual proposals, and I'm sure Andrew could as well, behind the committee's rationale. So we actually, when the committee finished going through and realized that we actually had more of the budget to spend, we were cutting the budget for I think it was like a $650,000 or $625,000 limit that we were told, and then we were told it actually was up to $700,000. So we actually were able to fund the K-State 360 technology position and the academic coaching program. And and the number 13 initiative, the Academic Advising Initiative. Those were initiatives that the committee was going to have to choose between, but instead the committee had enough funds to fully allocate it. So there was rationale behind the reason why other programs didn't get funding. It wasn't because we ran out of funds. Yet, if this group decided to vote negatively and referred it back to the committee, I'm sure the committee would take another look at it.
Any questions for Director Kuchera? Caucus Leader Rossenpour?
What is the minimum amount that a priority funding entity within SCTE can be cut when they're in their cutting cycles?
So if it's a priority funding, there were a couple changes that were made to the process, but I'll speak to the way it is right now. What was allocated for the previous fiscal year, so the number in the first column, the maximum that we can fund those priority funding amounts is 90% of that. So for instance, scholars assisting scholars, that received the full 90% that we could allocate to scholars assisting scholars because we thought that was a good event, good program. Developing Scholars Program, I think we funded that at 80%, about 80% of that number because of the number of students that it impacts versus some of the other proposals that we had. It was like $2,000 or $2,500 scholarships to individual students. The sustaining and developing the K-State Writing Center, we gave them the full 90% that we could on that because we think they do great work. And then the Green Action Fund, they turned in a late proposal, so we followed sort of a similar rationale that Education Opportunity Fund followed in the earlier part of the process and funded them about 75% of what they were allocated the previous year. Did that answer your question?
Further questions for Director Kuchera? If not, is there any further debate in the negative? Caucus Leader Rossenpour.
While I understand the rationale behind funding less than 90% because they turned in a late proposal or if they're not as effective, but again, we're looking at students' tuition that's supposed to be going into programs to help students. And if we were to run out of money and an entity had turned in a late proposal, that'd be different. I personally sit on Green Action Fund as the SGA rep, and I understand that it's not the best run program and there's a lot of leadership things that need to go on with that, but I kind of don't like the mentality of, hey, they turned in a late proposal, let's dock them a little bit more when we have money that we're sending off to reserves. And we have over half of an entire year's budget sitting in reserves already. If reserves was low, totally different story. But I think we have enough cushion to not need to have more money going into reserves.
Questions for Caucus Leader Rossenpour, Senator Akers?
What is your experience with accounting?
Minimal. I'm an engineering student.
That's probably not really a fair question.
Well, I'm just trying to understand your reasoning with accounting because I think there's.
And that kind of sounds debate-like too. Sorry. If you can find a way to rephrase those questions, I'll come back to you.
You can move on to that.
Yeah, Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
Senator Rossenpour, if you had to make an amendment and be able to be happy with this bill, what changes would you make?
I wouldn't make an amendment. I would see if we could send it back. Can we send it back? Do you have time to meet? That's an Andrew question.
Let me check the calendar.
Okay, yeah, we have enough weeks in Senate so we can do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Director Kuchera.
What is the Green Action Fund Committee and what type of projects does it fund?
So the Green Action Fund Committee is obviously something that's funded through SCTE. It's open to any student to write a proposal to create an initiative or a project or build or design something or change something about campus to make campus more green. The projects have to be completely led by students, but sponsored by a department on campus. So I've written a proposal before for the rec to get some iPads for record keeping rather than using paper. Some of the other stuff is Green Apple bikes on campus, the bike repair stations on campus, the water bottle refill stations on campus. There's a lot of different examples of Green Action Fund projects that go on around campus that benefit students every day. Also, the recycling center gets money from us. Students for Environmental Action does their Green Week in the spring semester, and also the Recycling Center gets money from us.
Director Kuchera?
The purpose of SCP is startup funds so that it hopefully rolls, is either sustainable funding or it gets funding from other parts of the university. Are you aware of if there's a department that's interested in picking up Green Action Fund? Supporting it, or are you not aware?
I'm not aware. But it is sponsored through the Provost's office, is the department that sponsors the Green Action Fund. And Matt Mendrup is the chair this year. Is he in the audience? Okay. So it's sort of just between, I suppose, their leadership to figure that out. But that's not the basis of my debate right now.
Any further questions for Caucus Leader Rosnapour? If not, is there any further debate in the positive? Treasurer Puchin?
Just want to answer a couple points that have been brought up in previous negative debate. First off, I want to start off with our $700,000 budget for this committee. That budget, the reason we have the $700,000 is we thought that we were going to have about $625,000 when we were starting out our allocations. And then as time went on, we realized that our predictions were wrong because the number that we're using for our budget is simply a projection. This number is based off, I want to say, Bill, maybe you can answer this, 1% of student tuition that comes in. Either way, this number, the $700,000, is a factor of student tuition. It depends on how many students come to our university in the fall. And so we can't predict right now what our enrollment's going to be in August. We can have an idea, but we don't know with 100% accuracy. So our $700,000 budget for next year is likely not going to be a $700,000 budget. It could be, you know, 710. It could be under 700,000. We just kind of used $700,000 as a number that we were comfortable going forward to plan a budget. Also, on Green Action Fund for how, on their late proposal, that was actually a group that I had to reach out to personally and see if they were going to turn in an application. Applications closed on December 1st, and I reached out to them. I think it was pretty late. It was probably 2-3 weeks later to see if they were interested in turning an application in. So I think that 75% funding is quite generous considering that they did not turn in an application, and it did not appear that they had an intent to turn a late application in until they were reached out to.
Any questions for SGA Treasurer Puchin? Caucus Leader Rosnapour?
If the committee were to go back and look at it, do you think there's any entities on this list that you could find to allocate that $10,000 to?
I think that sounds like a hypothetical. Yeah. But there is a way to rephrase that, I bet.
Would the committee be willing to go look at?
Maybe not that way. Are there further questions?
Do you think that there is any?
We'll ask Chair Nordstrom.
Are there any entities that were funded less than you guys wanted to?
No.
Further questions? If not, if there's no further questions, is there any further debate in the negative? Is there any further debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, we will proceed into a roll call vote on Resolution 51.
All right, Adams. Akers.
Yes.
Alberts.
Yes.
Anders.
Yes.
Arnaldi. Bergston.
Yes.
Bowler. Bickerud.
Yes.
Cafera. Dinez.
Yes.
DeMoranville.
Yes.
Dahl. Isn't Lacey? Aren't you Dahl's?
Yeah, yes by proxy.
Okay. Elliott. Flores.
Yes.
Fuller. Garcia. Garrity.
Yes.
Grandy. Harp.
Yes.
Haynes. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Hyen.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Jackson. Jewell.
Yes.
Kallenberger.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Maples.
Yes.
Markle.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
McDermott. McIntyre.
Yes.
Mertens. Meyer.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Nedry.
Yes.
Nordstrom.
Yes.
Ogren.
Yes.
Orth. Penny.
Yes.
Papoon. Pitts.
Yes.
Pruitt.
Yes.
Rostenpour.
Yes.
Swanson. Tedrow.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Tuttle.
Yes.
Valdez.
Yes.
Works.
Yes.
Zwick. All right, 38-0.
All right, with that, we'll move into Bill 67. Will the author please come forward?
I hate to do this, but how many yes votes do we need to approve a constitutional amendment?
3/4 of however many senators we have. I will get you that number in a second.
Just noting there were 38 yes votes on that last one. Okay, so changes to to Bill 67. There were no changes. The only changes is we had 2 additional authors, Marcus Kidd and Russell Harp, on this.
Great. First right to debate.
So I'm going to resist the temptation to debate both bills at once. So Bill 67 here is just changing the title of the position to more accurately reflect the way that it is currently and the way that any future bills coming up in the agenda would treat it. Currently, the connection in between Graduate Student Council and the and Student Government Cabinet is the Graduate Student Council President or their designee. And currently it just lists the President in the Constitution. So this is merely changing the name from, so that that person who's that connection in between those 2 governing bodies is the Graduate Student Council, Student Governing Association Liaison. And I would encourage you to vote positively on this. So that it more accurately reflects what we have and also provides greater flexibility for any future changes that should happen with this, could happen with this position.
Are there any questions for Director Kuchera? If not, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any debate at all? All right, so I'm still double checking the numbers to see. I'm willing to think that 38 might not cut it. But could I get someone to make the motion to lay on the table until I get that 100% confirmed? Chair Nedry?
I move we lay this bill on the table until we have that number confirmed.
It is moved and seconded to lay Bill 67 on the table until we have a number confirmed.
50, right?
Okay. Would you consider rescinding your motion?
Can I rescind my motion?
Awesome. So is there a motion to send this back to the executive committee since it takes 41 votes to pass a constitutional amendment? Intern Coordinator Jewell.
That we send this bill back to committee until we have enough senators next week.
Great. It is moved and seconded to send Bill 67 back to the Student Senate Executive Committee. Is there any debate? First right to debate, intern coordinator Jewel.
Send it on.
All right. Is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any further debate at all to sending this back to committee? If not, all those in favor of sending it back to the Student Senate Executive Committee, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. In the opinion of the speaker, that is a majority vote, and it will be sent back to the Student Senate Executive Committee. Will the author of Bill 58 please come forward?
So I think this will also be going back because, unless someone disagrees with me, because the Constitution still reads it's the Graduate Student Council President who serves, and there's not the flexibility to have someone else other than the Graduate Student Council President. If someone, can we take a question before I talk about changes?
Sure.
Just because I'm not a procedure expert here.
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions for Director Kuchera?
On that.
If not, is there any debate?
If not, I will just address the changes so that people are aware of what's happened in the past few weeks since this bill was introduced. So there have been two previous versions of the mechanism for getting that sort of graduate student representation on cabinet. And so I'm not going to talk about those previous versions unless you ask me a question and want to know why those were not as good solutions as the one we currently are looking at right here. But this is a complete rewrite from the bill 3 weeks ago. Attorney General Haley Hanneman helped a lot with the wording to make sure that it's something that can effectively go into the governing documents. But the biggest change was proposed by Graduate Student Council Caucus leader Marcus Kidd, who's an author on this, and also Russell Harp is adding his name to this legislation as well. So the biggest change to this was the way that this position would be appointed. So what's described in here is the GSC SGA liaison would be appointed from the application to the president's cabinet. So whoever the next president would be, the vice president and the chief of staff would interview potential candidates. And if there is a successful candidate from that particular person would be confirmed with the Graduate Student Council president and the Graduate Student Council, the Graduate Student Senator Caucus leader, and they would consult to make sure that that was an appropriate choice for the president's cabinet to be that communication link in between the graduate student governing body and the student government cabinet. If there is no one to fill that position, that relationship would still go on. And this change was made because there needs to be greater communication in between those governing bodies. And then the other big part of that change was, so in the Constitution, and I forget the section number, but in the Constitution it allows for a person to serve on multiple branches of student government as long as it's allowed for in either the Constitution or the bylaws. So this is the bylaws, and there's a sentence in here starting on line 27 that says, if no graduate student GSC SGA liaison is appointed, then a student senator representing the graduate school may be appointed to the position and be allowed to serve concurrently as a student senator and as the GSC SGA liaison. So are there any questions over those changes?
Any questions on any of the changes to the legislation? If not, first right to debate.
I'm going to recommend that this gets sent back unless anyone disagrees with me, because I think this should pass in tandem with the Constitution. I'm seeing some shaking heads, so I will ask you to refer it back. We've gone through a lot of work over these last 3 weeks to bring this bill into the best form, so if you have any questions or concerns over this, please bring it. We made a lot of changes and a lot of compromises on this, because I think the shared values in between all the people that we've talked to is making sure that we have someone looking out for graduate student issues in our discussions in student government, and that also we improve this communication link, not just between student government and the Graduate Student Council, but also in between the different, the graduate student senators and cabinet and Graduate Student Council.
Any questions for Director Kuchera on his debate? If not, is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, I'm seeking a motion. Chair Neary?
I move we hold this bill, we send this bill back to the executive committee, sorry, 58.
It is moved and seconded to send Bill 58 back to the Executive Committee. Is there any debate? First right, Chair Neary?
Yeah, send this back so we can get it all grouped together in the right order.
Is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, all those in favor of sending Bill 58 back to the Executive Committee, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. In the opinion of the Speaker, that is a majority vote, and it will be sent back to the Executive Committee. With that, our next piece of legislation for final action is Bill 68. Will the author please come forward? Bill 68 is an on-campus allocation. Great. Any changes?
No, all changes have been made.
All right, first right to debate.
Yeah, the Gender Collective is hosting a Transgender Day of Visibility where they're bringing in Layla Ireland, who's a transgender Army veteran, and she's going to share her experiences with that. It should be very enlightening.
Any questions on Senator Papoon's debate? If not, is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, is there a motion to bulk roll call these? Senator Kelly?
I move we bulk roll, or hold bills 68, 69, and 70 for bulk roll call. Second.
It's moved and seconded to hold bills 68 through 70 for bulk roll call. Is there any debate? Sorry, I don't think that's debatable. All those in favor of holding these bills for bulk roll call, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. In the opinion of the Speaker, that's a 2/3 vote, and bills 68 through 70 will be held for bulk roll call. And with that, will the author of Bill 69 please come forward? Have there been any changes made?
No changes.
First right to debate.
So I'm going to take a quick little poll. Who here loves our planet Earth? Go ahead and raise your right hand. Just as I thought. So Julia Hill, you might be wondering, who the heck is that? So she's actually an environmental war hero, in case you're curious. She spent 738 days, which is roughly 2 years, on a tree on a 6-foot by 6-foot platform, in which she only cleaned her feet about 2 times. So, I mean, I clean my feet a lot more, but she also endured freezing rain due to El Nino, 40-mile-per-hour winds also due to El Nino. She also experienced a 10-day siege from security guards and attempted intimidation from angry security guards. So, I mean, what I'm trying to get at, she's basically a war hero. And I don't know about you guys, but Earth is my favorite planet because we obviously live here. So she's a very good speaker, and listening to these guys, or to these people speak, they got really emotional on the topic, so they really care about it. So it really shows that there's people on this campus that greatly care about and the environment and the changes that we can potentially bring to it. Julia Hill also brings tree hugging to an entirely new level. And with that, I open up for questions.
Any questions for Senator Nichols? All right.
Thank you.
Is there any debate in the negative?
No debate, just a correction.
Yes, sir. Corrections.
Line 9, it should be Julia Hill, not Julia Hall.
Great. Got it. We'll make that correction. Any further, is there any debate in the negative? Debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, that bill will be held for bulk roll call. Will the author of Bill 70 please come forward? Any changes?
No.
Awesome. First right to debate.
Yeah, so Alpha Gamma Delta would like to send 2 representatives to their national leadership conference. There's a lot of breakout workshops and different techniques and leadership strategies that they can bring back to K-State and benefit the student body as a whole.
All right. Is there any questions on Chair Chumlin's debate? If not, is there any debate in the negative? Director Kuchera?
So I was really happy to spend the first 3 years of my student government experience on allocations committees. And there are just a few problems I have with this particular allocation. I don't have a problem about this type of an organization having an event on campus that's open to all students, that all students can experience, interact with. But when you have a fraternity or sorority sending individuals to a conference, one of the things that committees back when I was on allocations committees looked at is how well do you bring that information back to campus, and how does that add value to other students, not just the students who go on that trip? How does that knowledge get passed along? So I went to the Alpha Gamma Delta website and tried to find what type of price, what type of cost it would be to join this organization. And it said, quote, "We establish our dues and fee structures in a way that will ... have our total membership costs fall in the middle or the average of the Pan-Hellenic chapters. If you have questions, contact the Vice President of Finance for the organization." I could not find any sort of dollar amount that this organization charged its members. And my mom always taught me that when there isn't a price, you probably don't want to know how much it costs. So I look at this there's a barrier to entry for price for this organization, and then there's also a selection process that's maybe not based solely on like a grade point average like we have in some of our honors organizations we fund through student government. So because of the difficulty for students to get in this organization, and in the ways that I don't see that this knowledge brings, the knowledge and the experiences gained at this conference would be brought back to K-State and shared with those outside of an exclusive organization. That's the only reason why I would encourage you to vote no on this.
Questions, Chair Neadery?
I just wanted to know, you might have to refer this, but have we funded any other fraternities and sororities for travel this year?
I believe there was a minor allocation in a previous Senate, but I'm totally open to referring that. I refer my speaking rights to either the two guys in the back.
Senator Nichols.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to you in a
Chair,
second.
yeah.
I can answer that. Yeah, we had one other minor allocation. Can you say if that was travel or? Yeah, it was a travel allocation to Delta Sig.
Further questions, Senator Nichols?
In your research, can males join a sorority?
That is a question I do not know the answer to, so I'm more happy to refer.
I can field that one. Yeah, no, they cannot. They are based on the Board of Regents discrimination policy. Fraternities and sororities are allowed to discriminate based on gender. So, yep. Senator Works.
Yeah, do you think that for the sake of like consistency that we should vote yes on this since it was previously funded to another fraternity?
So I think it depends upon competing.
I might cut in on that one and call that a little bit debate-like. So.
I think it comes down to competing values, whether or not you value being consistent or whether or not you value doing the right thing. And in my opinion, voting this down because of exclusivity is the right thing.
SGA Treasurer Pushin.
Is this a stance that we should hold on all groups that have selective membership?
As I said, if we have maybe a selective group that has an on-campus event that's open to everybody, I have no problem with that. If we have an exclusive group that only its members can go to a conference, and I cannot see a tangible way that that knowledge gets passed along beyond those individuals or the members in that organization, that's when I find a problem with it. Exclusive organization that costs as much as I assume this organization might. And if someone knows the price for this organization, I'm more than happy to refer for you to describe that.
Any further questions on Director Kuchera's debate? Is there any further debate in the positive? Chair Shumlin.
Okay, I'll keep this short. So we wouldn't have funded an on-campus event because we're a travel allocation committee. So that'll just kind of correct that right there. And the reason why we funded this was obviously there's only 2 representatives going, but they have leadership positions in multiple on-campus groups. So I think that you'll see the benefit of their leadership training in the other groups that you're in on campus. So that's kind of where you can see that benefit.
Any questions for Chair Chumland? Intern Bothwell?
Can we know what those organizations are?
I can't tell you that. They said that about 15% of their sorority holds a leadership campus, or a leadership position in another on-campus organization.
Follow up?
Question. So I guess the thread you guys are going with, if I'm following correctly, is these 2 members go to the conference, they transfer the knowledge to the members of their organization, and then those members disperse the information to everyone else on campus, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So when they get back from the conference, they'll have workshops with their entire sorority, which in itself is like a fairly wide reach into a campus membership, and then that can kind of be dispersed that way. Yeah.
Further questions for Chair Chumland? Chair Pickerud.
Do you find that the information learned at this conference is specific only to the organization and wouldn't be transferable?
No, definitely not. It's all about increasing your leadership skills. There's diversity training and lots of other things that we funded other organizations for. They align with our values. And so I think bringing that back to K-State and implementing that within a sorority and other campus groups is very beneficial.
Further questions? Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any further debate in the positive? Senator Martin?
I'm going to keep this really brief. I just wanted to answer a previous speaker's questions regarding the costs of this organization in comparison to other similar organizations. So sororities at K-State, Alpha Gamma Delta, their first year member cost is $1,486 and their out-of-house cost is $1,165. Those are both the lowest out of any sorority on campus at K-State. And they don't have any in-house members because they don't currently have a house yet.
Are there any questions for Senator Martin on his debate? If not, is there any further debate in the negative? Further debate in the positive? Any further debate at all? If not, we will proceed into a bulk roll call vote that will include bills 68, 69, and 70. Do be aware, even in bulk roll call votes, you don't have to vote yes for all or no for all. You can say yes to 68, yes to 69, and yes or no to 70. You have the option for yes or no or abstain to all 3, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, is that clear? Sweet. Awesome. We'll jump on into our bulk roll call vote.
Cool. And then just as a side note, be patient with me as I hop through in case you do say no with one of them, because I got to slide through the Excel sheet. Like right now. Okay. Adams. Akers.
Yes to all.
Alberts.
Yes, all.
Anders.
Yes to all.
Arnaldi. Bergston.
Yes to all.
Bowler. Bickerud,
Yes to all.
Cafera, Dinez,
Yes to all.
DeMoranville,
Yes to all.
Dahl,
Yes to all by proxy.
Elliott, Flores,
Yes to all.
Fuller, Garcia. Sorry.
Yes to all.
Okay. Garrity,
Yes to all.
Grandy, Harp,
Yes to all.
Haynes, Hendrickson,
Yes to all.
Hyen,
Yes to all.
Hughes,
Yes to all.
Jackson, Jewell,
Yes to all.
Kallenberger,
Yes to all.
Kelly,
Yes to all.
Kidd,
Yes to all.
Klein,
Yes to all.
Maples,
Yes to all.
Markle,
Yes to all.
Martin,
Yes to all.
McDermott, McIntyre,
Yes to all.
Mertens, Meyer,
Yes to all.
Nichols.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Thanks. Really cleared that up. Needry,
Yes to all.
Nordstrom,
Yes to all.
Ogren,
Yes to all.
Orth, Penny,
Yes to all.
Papoon,
Yes to all.
Pitts,
Yes to all.
Pruitt,
Yes to all.
Rostenpour.
Yes, yes, no.
All right. All right. Swanson, Tedrow,
Yes to all.
Thomas,
Yes to all.
Tuttle,
Yes to all.
Valdez,
Yes to all.
Works,
Yes to all.
Zwick. All right. 39 to 0 to 0, 39 0 to 0, 39 to 1 to 0.
38.
38, sorry.
38. Awesome. With that, we'll move into introduction of minor allocations. And we have two minor allocations to consider this week, both coming from the Travel Allocations Committee. The first is to the Arnold Air Society, and they are hoping to travel to their national conclave March 30th through April 3rd in New Orleans. They've requested $200 and are recommended $200. And then the second one is to the Mechanical Contractors Association of America Student Chapter. They are requesting $500 to travel to their national convention, which is March 25th through 29th in San Antonio. And they are recommended $500. With that, are there any corrections to any of the minor allocations? Are there any questions on any of the minor allocations? If not, we'll move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion for Resolution 54? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
We consider resolution, resolution 54.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to consider Resolution 54. Will the author please come forward?
All right, Resolution 171854, recommendation for the creation of a multicultural student center by Camry Mills Gladney, Cynthia Karanja, Daryl Reese, Delshay Roberts, Edna Bassi, Erica Woods, Jared Sterling, Jeffrey Matthews, Jahari Snell, Joy Uday, Krista Primers, Maya Lewis, Melissa Riley, Michael Leverett, Michaela Abernathy, Ryan Kelly, and Zanaya Peoples. Whereas on May 3rd, 2013, a K-State Collegian article entitled Office and Union Access Center for 25 Multicultural Student Organizations at K-State explained how the Multicultural Student Office, MSO, houses K-State's many multicultural student organizations in lieu of a larger center, which K-State does not have. Whereas in the 2013 article, Brandon Clark, then program coordinator for multicultural student organizations for the Office of Diversity, stated K-State is the only school in the Big 12 conference that doesn't have a center for the multicultural students. Whereas in a K-State Today announcement on March 26, 2014, Provost April Mason stated $1 million gift was given to the university to support a multicultural student center, and the College of Architecture, Planning, and Design worked with our student chapter of the National Organization of Minority Architects to conduct a multicultural enrichment charrette to produce potential designs for that multicultural student center. Whereas Dean of the College of Architecture and Planning and Design, Tim DeNoble, in regards to the multicultural enrichment charrette, commented that it was a comprehensive effort, and in this way, the quality results were rooted in excellent research. I'm pleased that the K-State administration recognized the opportunity of engaging our excellent students in envisioning the future of our campus. Whereas President Kirk Schultz addressed the K-State community on August 10th, 2015, in correspondence entitled "A Letter from President Kirk Schultz, Goals and Objectives," in which he identified one of his goals to secure $2.5 million plus leading gifts for the $16 million Campus Multicultural Center. Whereas in its article, First Aid of the BSU address calls attention to university racial climate. On December 2nd, 2015, the Collegian quoted then BSU President Wendell Lewis saying, "Now the way begins for the funding to begin for a multicultural center, but we must push this funding and make it a top priority." Whereas following a change in our university's leadership, instances of hate continue to plague the academic experience of students of color, adversity which the Kansas State University Black Student Union, KSU-BSU, strive to overcome. Whereas in a K-State Today announcement on November 1st, 2016, University President Richard B. Myers addressed a recent letter from the Black Student Union that has, quote, called for more action. Whereas acknowledging KSU-BSU's call for the university to, quote, be more intentional about creating space for our multicultural students on this campus, Myers stated that donor meetings have resulted in questions about specific details rather than funding commitments. The next step is to work with our students to define uses and outcomes for the space. We need to have better answers to the questions our donors raised. Whereas Multicultural Center Planning Group appointed, a K-State Today announcement published February 23rd, 2017, explained the charge of the group was to recommend a vision, purpose statement, and plan that could be used by the KSU Foundation for a feasibility study and case statement developed. The group also is charged to honor the work completed previously, using it as a starting point for further planning. Whereas, according to the webpage of the university president, the Multicultural Center Planning Group was and will continue to be committed to creating a center that advances student success, diversity, inclusion, social justice at Kansas State University, and was committed to ensure that all student groups were at the table as decisions were being made and that students, faculty, staff, and alumni were included in the process. Whereas in May 2017, at the conclusion of the group's time together, the Multicultural Center Planning Group report and recommendations was released. And whereas among their recommendations for the future, concerning a timeline for the creation of the center, noted that in this transitional time of leadership and organizational restructuring, a definitive timeline is difficult to recommend. The committee wishes to empathize, however, that continued progress must be made transparent, and timelines must be developed and communicated to ensure forward progress and accountability. Be it resolved that Section 1, Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSUSGA, advocates for the prioritization of the creation of a space that, quote, brings people together for reflection, education, and action on issues of diversity and social justice, expands students' cultural horizons while honoring their respective cultural experiences, provides a welcoming environment for prospective and current multicultural students and for students of varied sexualities, genders, abilities, and religions, and promotes and fosters the intercultural and cross-cultural understanding, skills, and strategies for students to be successful at K-State and beyond. Section 2, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, a copy of this resolution will be sent to International Student and Scholar Programs Director Sarah Thurston, Student Access Center Director Jason Maceberg Tomlinson, Association of Residence Halls President Sean Marshall, LGBT Resource Center Coordinator Brandon Haddock, Faculty Senate President Brian Linshield, University Support Staff President Carrie Fink, Associate Vice President for Student Life of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs Adrian Rodriguez, Vice President of Student Life and Dean of Students Pat Bosco, Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life Director Ben Hoffer, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer Brian Samuel, and University President Richard B. Myers. Love to stand for questions.
All right, with that, are there any corrections to Resolution 54? Senator McIntyre?
I don't know if it's right on your copy, but on line 13 it says organization is Lou instead of in Lou.
Further corrections? Senator Martin?
Ben Hopper's title should be changed. I don't know what his title is, but it's not Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life Director.
We'll get that figured out and get that changed. Further corrections, Caucus Leader Rostapor?
Line 100, you don't have Adrian's name listed in my copy.
Chair Neatery?
I believe that this font size is bigger, but it might be updated on your.
No, I think it's big.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Senator Flores?
On line 97, I believe Sean Marshall's last name is missing an L.
Yes, it is.
Further corrections, Director Polson?
In line 34 and 35,
Schultz should have a C after the S.
Further corrections? Chair Neatery?
Did you add a bill number?
I did, yep. Actually, a resolution number, but yeah.
Resolution, sorry.
Further corrections? If not, any questions on the resolution? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani?
Could the associate provost for international office and programs be added as an author, grant chapter?
Added as a recipient?
As a recipient.
Yes, definitely. Did you get that?
Senator Nichols?
As a non-multicultural student, am I still allowed access to the multicultural student center?
I will speak specifically to the report that was published by the Multicultural Student Center Planning Group. Mary, do you want to take that? I'd like to defer to multicultural.
Yeah, so I was part of that committee, but yes, it's for everyone, it's for every student. It's really like an intercultural center for everyone that focuses on all different kinds of identities. Yeah, everyone here is welcome in this space.
Thanks, Mary.
Director Kuchera?
I noticed that the authors list includes a bunch of members from the Black Student Union. Can you speak to what outreach you've done with this resolution to other multicultural student organizations?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Stephen. So this was an initiative that was kind of started and spearheaded through the Black Student Union, as I'm a member on their exec board. So the names you see listed on there are the exec board members. That vote was on Tuesday. Since then, I have started to reach out to other student organizations, but definitely I think that in these next couple of days, I'll be a lot more intentional about that outreach.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Rostenpour?
All right, so one of your arguments, the first one actually, is that the MSO office downstairs houses all of the multicultural student organizations. How is that really an argument when most student organizations on campus don't have a space?
Yeah, so one, I would hesitate to say argument. In the whereas sections, I really tried to establish a timeline of the conversations that have been going on regarding the center, and I felt like this one was very relevant to that topic.
And then, can I have a follow-up?
You bet.
Okay, so, I know you talk about it, but what is the point of having a physical building that sort of segregates multicultural students? That's how I view it sometimes, is when you have this physical building that's somewhere else on campus, it segregates students rather than bring them together.
Mary, do you?
Sure.
I'll defer that to Mary.
Yeah, so the thing is that if this was gone about the wrong way, it could. But the idea of what this building is let's say, for example, you have lead studies. It is a focus on leadership. Does it mean that anyone who doesn't want to be in a leadership position is not allowed in lead studies? No, it's a place to develop skills that educate, and make people have a place to come together. So it's this idea that yes, it focuses on this idea of multiculturalism and intercultural communities, but it shouldn't segregate, it should educate and expand that knowledge to everyone. The idea is to change this culture and this idea that just because someone is multicultural, you shouldn't be able to approach them, or they have, does that make sense? Like, giving it the importance it deserves. And by other institutes having that, celebrating that, giving students the opportunity to expand their knowledge in that, like the resolution states, is this idea that people will be better here at K-State and beyond. So, if you want to add to that.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. And I would love to get with you afterwards, Caucus Leader Rostenpour, and have a conversation.
Further questions? If not, is there a motion to consider Bill 73? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani. It is moved and seconded to consider Bill 73. Will the author please come forward? Chair Neatery?
I move the author be allowed to summarize.
It is moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize.
I'll do the whereas.
If there are no objections, the author is allowed to summarize.
Awesome. So I'll just briefly go over the whereas clauses. So whereas the Privilege Fee Committee reviewed the University Counseling Services audit for the fiscal years 2014 to 2017 and listened to the presentation and proposal from University Counseling Services for an increase. Whereas Kansas State University Counseling Services, in support of the overall mission of the university, provides high-quality professional services to help students meet their full potential, personally, academically, and socially. Whereas within an accepting, sustaining, and compassionate setting, counseling services provides a professional resource to attend to the psychological needs, promote the well-being, alleviate concerns, facilitate problem resolution, and enhance the success of our students. Whereas last semester, University Counseling Services' waitlist hit 90 students on November 3rd, 2017, and students were having to wait 4 to 5 weeks to be seen. Whereas University Counseling Services asked for a 5% increase year over year for the next 3 years to be used for fully funding all their current staff positions, which are not fully funded because of state callbacks, a 2% cost of living increase annually for all employees to decrease dramatic staff turnover in recent years, professional development, and hire a postdoc position to help in decreasing wait times for students. And whereas the Privilege Fee Committee voted 7 to 3 to 0 to recommend to Student Senate the following privilege fee agreement. And it goes into the agreement, yeah.
All right. With that, are there any corrections to Bill 73? If not, are there any questions for the author? Senator Akers?
Could you explain the 3 no votes?
I'm sorry, could you say it one more time?
The 7 to 3, could you explain why they voted that way?
Okay, I mean,
Can or I can, either way.
I mean, I didn't vote no, so I don't know that I can necessarily have the place to say why they voted no, but I can defer to Sarah.
Yeah, so, in my opinion, just from the discussion that we had, I mean, I don't vote. But I believe the 3 no votes were not because they didn't want to give them an increase. We kind of did a check-in and everyone really wanted an increase. They just thought 5% might be too much. So in support of an increase, but maybe not in support of that much.
Further questions? Director Kuchera?
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you speak to specific increases counseling services was requesting and maybe the thought process behind settling on a 555 increase?
Yeah. So in the resolution, it kind of outlines the priorities that were sent to the Privilege Fee Committee by the Director of Counseling Services. Really, in my mind, the number one thing that stood out was the fact that counseling services can't even fully fund their positions right now. A 555 increase, after we ran the numbers, the total revenue that they would get from that increase would barely cover the cost of what it would take to fully fund those positions. Hope that answers your question.
Further questions? If not, is there a motion to consider Bill 74? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani? Moved and seconded to consider Bill 74. Will the author please come forward?
All right, Bill 171874, request of funds from the Privilege Fee Debt Reduction and Emergency Allocation Account. It says by Sarah Neatery right now, but it's going to be by the Privilege Fee next week as long as we vote it out of committee, just to be clear. Whereas estimates based on university enrollment data, most recent data includes the 20th day spring enrollment numbers. The collection of campus privilege fee is projected to have a shortfall of approximately $344,000 this fiscal year due to the decrease in enrollment in academic year 2017-2018. Whereas withdrawals from the privilege fee debt reduction and emergency allocation account shall only be made for payments towards outstanding debt on student bonds, for one-time emergency funding allocations, one-time budget allocations, that should have an S, and to meet the approved allocation to privilege fee agencies due to a financial shortfall from lower than projected enrollment. And whereas, that doesn't have whereas. whereas spelled. The debt reduction and emergency allocation account has a total balance of $1,177,913.79. Being enacted that Section 1, the central allocations account for campus privilege fee collections, that number, shall be specifically allocated money to cover the budget shortfall due to the enrollment decline. Section 2, the amount allocated for transfer to the central allocations account will not exceed the amount needed to meet fiscal year 18 total campus privilege fee budget allocation of $16,439,292. Section 3, upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, these funds shall be transferred from the debt reduction and emergency allocation account to the central allocations account for the campus privilege fee collections.
Are there any corrections to Bill 74?
Yeah.
Senator McIntyre?
I know you got the first one, but did you get the second allocation on the line 14 also? Like the third allocation should also be allocation.
Yeah, it should be an S. And then the whereas is not spelled correctly, the third whereas.
Any further corrections? If not, are there any questions for the author? Senator Tuttle.
Have spending cuts been discussed to cover this amount?
Yeah, so let me explain how the privilege fee works. So the how much you get charged in privilege fee, so this year the privilege fee decides all these fundings. We've had increases, we've had continuances, and then for that next year, over the summer, they decide how much students will pay in privilege fee. It's not a set number. It's based on our recommendations of what entities should be getting, then it's charged to students. So because last year we had these recommendations, they also put in, I think, a 3% possible enrollment decline into that number. And because our enrollment declined more than that, that's why we're requesting money from reserves to cover that. This account is specifically for reasons like this. In years past, we haven't had enough of an enrollment decline that we've had to pull from reserves, but this specific year, because it's been so detrimental, is why. So we're covering for our current fiscal year, not next year's. Next year, the privilege fee will increase just because of this enrollment decline, even if we didn't increase any entities. Does that make sense? That was a lot.
Further questions?
Can I make one comment? Sorry.
As long as it's not debate-like.
It's not debate-like. So just for informational purposes, the reason there's not a direct amount in the sections is because we have to wait until summer numbers are official. So we think it's going to be about $344,000, but that's why that second section talks about it cannot exceed the amount we needed to cover this year.
Any further questions? If not, is there a motion for Bill 75? Senator Hine?
I move to consider Bill 75.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to consider Bill 75. Will the author please come forward? Take it away.
Bill 17-1875, termination of the K-State Athletics privilege fee by the Privilege Fee Committee, Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Nick Edwards, Sarah Neatery, and Jonathan Pushin. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association and K-State Athletics have worked together for decades to mutually advance the interests of Kansas State University students, including historic collaboration leading to the construction of Ahern Fieldhouse, KSU Stadium, Bramlage Coliseum, and many other projects. Whereas the campus privilege fee is projected to have a shortfall of approximately $344,000 this fiscal year due to the decrease in enrollment in academic year 2017. Can you add 2018? Whereas KSA has reported 8 straight years of budget surplus, whereas members of KSU SGA met with KSA to review the timeline of ending their privilege fee agreement, whereas the KSU SGA is concerned about the fiscal opportunity to fund entities that are less financially stable and are vital to student success, and whereas eliminating the fee would make K-State Athletics one of just 8 Division I athletic departments that do not receive subsidies from their university. Being enacted that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association terminates the current privilege fee budget agreement with K-State Athletics. Section 2, this bill shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President.
Are there any corrections to Bill 75? If not, are there any questions on Bill 75? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani? Do you have any questions on Bill 75? Are there any further questions on Bill 75? If not, is there a motion for Bill 76? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani? It is moved and seconded to consider Bill 76.
Awesome.
Please come forward.
Bill 17-1876, creation of the Student Athletics Ticket Agreement by the Privilege Fee Committee, Jack Ayers, Olivia Ballman, Nick Edwards, Sarah Neatery, and Jonathan Pushin. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association and K-State Athletics have worked together for decades to mutually advance the interests of Kansas State University students, including historic collaboration leading to construction of Ahern Fieldhouse, KSU Stadium, Bramlage Coliseum, and many other projects. Whereas members of the KSU SGA met with KSA due to projected shortfalls in the campus privilege fee and the 8 straight years of budget surpluses by KSA to review the timeline of ending their privilege fee budget agreement. Whereas Bill 17-1875 terminated the campus privilege fee budget agreement, and whereas this agreement will set forth a new working relationship between KSU SGA and KSA to provide a world-class game day experience for K-State students. Being enacted that, Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association approves the following student athletics ticket agreement. The agreement shall be included in and or in replace of the appropriate chapter of the KSU SGA statutes. Student athletics ticket agreement. This agreement made on the, that needs updated, between the Kansas State University Student Governing Association and K-State Athletics. 1, KSU SGA hereby acknowledge the following points of agreement with KSA. A, students have access to free charge of volleyball, women's basketball, women's soccer, and baseball home passes. B, student seating at Bill Snyder Family Stadium for football will be located in sections 24 to 27. I, KSA may sell football student passes as demand allows and can safely be accommodated in Bill Snyder Family Stadium. KSA may sell student guest passes to accompany the student pass holders and will inform SGA, should be KSU SGA, of the procedure for sending guest passes prior to each football season. KSA may sell general public tickets in student seating areas for games held over a weekend when school is not in session the previous or following week. C, student seating at Bramlage Coliseum for basketball will be located in sections 19 to 23. If the home game versus the University of Kansas is played while class is in session, the student section will be expanded for this game only to also include sections 24 and 25. KSA may sell combo student ticket passes that include men's basketball access for up to 7,000 students in Bramlage. KSA will continue to operate a lineup attendance incentive program to be utilized when anticipated men's basketball attendance is beyond capacity. KSA will consult with KSU SGA to make public seating available from sections 19 to 23 if anticipated attendance for a specific game will be below the student section capacity. KSA may sell general public tickets in student seating areas for games held while school is not in session. If student attendance, D, if student attendance consistently exceeds the available capacity of seats, KSA will consult with KSU SGA to develop a plan to accommodate long-term needs of student pass holders. E, the agreement shall automatically terminate in the case of the following. Should annual student pass sales fall below 7,000 in football or 5,000 in men's basketball, or average scanned attendance for season fall below 4,000 per game in football or 1,100 per game in men's basketball, the agreement shall automatically terminate, and the KSA director and SGA president will meet to evaluate and discuss student ticket allotments prior to the next academic year. Substantial KSA construction, change in KSA leadership, or the end of a 3-year cycle. KSA will consult with KSU SGA to set student pass pricing on an annual basis. G, students may only purchase one additional ticket at the student rate for a spouse or dependent child for football and or men's basketball. 2, KSU SGA will work collaboratively with KSA to develop funding plans from KSU SGA reserves for future capital improvements that aim to improve student experience. 3, this agreement supersedes any previous agreement made by KSU SGA with KSA. 4, any breach of this agreement by KSA will result in automatic review by KSU SGA. The failure of KSU SGA to exercise any of its rights in any instance shall not constitute a waiver of such rights in that instance or in any other instance. 5, KSA shall inform KSU SGA prior to making major changes in ticketing procedures for all sports. 6, this agreement shall be governed and subject to the laws of the state of Kansas. 7, by signing this agreement, the representatives and their respective parties hereby represent that each is duly authorized by his or her party to execute this document on behalf of such party, and that the party agrees to be bound by the provisions of the agreement. This is why we normally don't read privilege fee agreements. Bill 171876 becomes effective upon execution of this agreement by the Director of K-State Athletics, the Speaker of the Student Senate, the Vice President for Student Life, and the Student Body President.
All right, are there any corrections to Bill 76?
All the KSU SGAs.
All right, with that, is there any further corrections? If not, are there any questions for the author? All right, if not, is there a motion for Bill 77? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani? It is moved and seconded to consider Bill 77. Will the author please come forward? Senator Papoon?
I move the author be allowed to summarize.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to allow the author to summarize. If there are no objections, you are allowed to summarize.
Appreciate that. I'll go through the whereas clauses real quick and then give a brief summary of some of the sections. So whereas according to Article 1, Section 102 of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Constitution, in pursuit of its stated purpose, shall act in accordance with the principles of equality before the law, separation of powers, proportional representation, and university suffrage. According to the survey conducted by the 2016-2017 Special Committee on Membership, Student Senate is disproportionate in its representation of the Kansas State University student bodies LGBTQA+, transgender, non-binary, international, multiracial, non-Christian, female, on-campus, non-IFCPHC, out-of-state, veteran, and disabled communities. Whereas the 2017-2018 Special Committee on Membership is charged with analyzing and proposing solutions to address Student Senate's disproportional membership. Whereas the 2018 Special Committee on Membership focused on the mechanism by which we educate and involve students in the processes of KSU SGA. Whereas the current SGA intern program can only engage a maximum of 30 students, a limit that inadequately engages the interested student body, and only accepts application during the first few weeks of the first semester. Whereas the students who are selected for the SGA intern program become familiarized with the process involved in KSU SGA, as well as become more knowledgeable about issues on campus affecting themselves and the communities they represent. Whereas the Special Committee on Membership administered the Accelerated Fellowship Program, AFP, in 4 sessions from January 25th to February 15th, 2018. Whereas out of the participants in the AFP, 80% of those who attended 2 or more sessions filed for Student Senate, 92% of those who attended 3 or more sessions filed for Student Senate, and 100% of those who attended all 4 sessions filed for Student Senate. Whereas the AFP removed barriers to entrance for students to be involved in KSU SGA and empowered students to not only run in elections, but take an active role in advocating for students through KSU SGA. And whereas incorporating the beneficial components of both the AFP and the SGA intern program would produce students most fit for KSU SGA positions, allow for any KSU student to have access to resources within SGA, and provide an environment conducive to relationship building and individual accountability. So section 1 is going to be the duties of the SGA intern coordinators. So subsection 1, I guess, advertise and administer the SGA intern program. 1 SGA intern coordinator shall coordinate the 5-week courses. The other SGA intern coordinator shall coordinate supplemental programming for interns continuing past the course. Regarding the first course of the term, both SGA coordinators shall work together in its execution. The Phase 1 intern coordinator shall coordinate each 5-week course. Their duties include developing curriculum, activities, and facilitating relevant speakers for each session. The role shall be focused on educating interns about SGA. The Phase 2 intern coordinator shall coordinate resources for interns continuing past each course. Their duties include administering the SGA mentor program and setting up a branch rotation based on the preference of continuing interns. This coordinator shall also hold regular meetings of continuing interns in order to assess their experiences with the program and promote peer-to-peer collaboration. The role shall be focused on individualizing the program for each intern and catalyzing relationship building. What else? So again, there will be a survey conducted following the completion of each intern course. Sam, on line 87, can you change class to course? Thanks. Okay, so then section 2 talks about the attendance policies that we kind of briefly talked about in the presentation. Again, The only changes here are changing student senate to SGA intern, so interns will be subject to the attendance policies. Article 4 strikes interns from the on-campus allocations committee. Article 5 strikes interns from travel allocations committee. Article 6 is from privilege fee. Article 7 is from Senate operations. Article 8 is governmental relations. Article 9 is student engagement. Article 10 is academic competition team. And then section 11 is defining the SGA intern program. So A is definitions. 1, the SGA intern program shall be defined as the combination of the 5-week course, mandatory weekly meetings, the SGA mentor program, and the branch rotation. 2, phase 1 shall be defined as the set of 3 consecutive courses that include 5 total sessions. A, course shall be defined as a set of 5 sessions. B, session shall be defined as an informational meeting during the first phase of the intern program. 3, phase 2 shall be defined as the continued education of interns through mandatory weekly meetings, the SGA mentor program, and a branch rotation. A, SGA mentor program shall be defined as the program facilitated by the phase 2 coordinator to pair SGA members with interns interested in the activities of that SGA member. B, branch rotation shall be defined as the placement of interns between the student senate standing committees, as well as a visit to a cabinet meeting and a judicial mock hearing or equitable activity to educate interns on each of the SGA branches. B, the SGA intern program shall consist of 2 5-week courses during the fall semester, 1 5-week course in the spring semester, as well as supplemental SGA programming for interns who choose to continue. The intern program shall be open to all students and shall not require an application or selection process. Section C, again, addressing a question that was asked earlier. Interns will have the ability to make motions in Student Senate, but may not sponsor legislation without a senator. Section D, in order to continue past the course, interns must attend a majority of sessions and express an interest in continuing with SGA. Upon completion of a course, the SGA intern coordinators will match interns with an SGA mentor and assign interns to a rotation based on their indicated branch preferences. Section 12 is taking interns off of Green Action Fund. Section 13 is governmental relations. And I would love to stand for questions or corrections.
All right, are there any corrections? If not, questions? Senator McIntyre?
I think the font is big again,
Sorry.
Senator McIntyre.
Do you have any demographic information on the current intern or past intern classes and your accelerated fellowship program members?
Not to my knowledge. No, for sure, for the Accelerated Fellowship Program, and I do not think so for the intern classes. Refer to Jordan.
We could pull demographics from their org site.
So we can access that information, we just do not have it right now.
Follow-up granted.
For your, I guess I then want to know, why did you feel that your second whereas clause was necessary, since the bill doesn't discuss changes to Senate specifically, but more to the intern program? That makes sense.
Could you rephrase that really quickly? I'm sorry, Jake.
So for the second whereas clause, you talk about the demographics of Senate, and but the rest of the bill doesn't really talk about directly changing those demographics. So I guess my question is, why did you feel you need to include that whereas clause if you didn't pull the demographic information for those 2 programs?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So last year's Special Committee on Membership conducted this survey, right? And the part in the transition documents from last term to this term, the biggest piece that I got out of it was that second whereas clause, right? And then as you can see, kind of in the subsequent whereas clauses, I talk about how our charge is to address that very issue, right? And the next one talks about how this term we focused on the way in which we educate students about SGA as a remedy, or I guess as a solution for that issue. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, we can talk more later.
Look forward to it.
Intern Bothwell.
So the interns are still going to be like rotating through branches, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so follow-up question.
Granted.
So while they're doing that, what was the purpose of striking out interns as members of all the committees in all those subsections, like section 4 through like 10? If they're still able to serve on the committees, why were they struck out as members in our bylaws?
Yeah, so the bylaws say that we have to have a certain amount of interns on each committee, right? So when we're looking at the structure in the presentation that was given earlier during committee reports, there would not be interns to serve on those committees during that first course, right? And also, and Jordan, feel free to jump in, but I mean, I guess in my opinion, and based on the conversations we've had in committee, it doesn't make sense that we're legislating the response, like the location that the interns have to go. The intent behind, you know, I guess like the individual centric approach of this program is that interns would have the ability to choose which committee they want to serve on. And I think that, again, I guess in the opinion of the committee, the reason why we're authoring this is that we see that bylaw as a limit to that. Jordan, do you want to? Okay. I can say follow up maybe.
Yep. Follow up.
I'll refer to Caucus Leader Wassenport.
Okay, something else that I brought up was that same exact question, like we're limiting interns' involvement in a way, but then I asked, okay, well, what if there's an opening in a committee? Can the committee chair then appoint an intern who's been like very regular, very engaged, very interested to that seat, and that is allowed. So as soon as there's an opening in any committee, I would feel that most committee chairs would likely appoint an intern who's been very engaged, rather than someone else.
I would also add that currently any student, any K-State student can attend any committee meeting that we have. So really legislating these things in the bylaws, you know, I think that almost taking advantage of the system that we have, right, and saying, you know, go to these committee meetings, exercise your rights to engage in these meetings is a beneficial way of introducing interns to that experience. Do you have a follow-up?
No, I think I'm good.
Chair Nordstrom.
Yeah, just for some clarification on lines 19 and 20. Do you think that the current intern program is a reason that Senate is disproportionate demographically?
Charges analyzing and proposing solutions.
Since that was like the goal of the committee.
Lines 19 and 20.
Did I say the right line?
Well, I guess I would look at lines 20 and 20, or 22 and 23 that say that we, the membership committee focus on the mechanism by which we educate and involve students, right? Pointing to the intern program. So in regards to your question, we focused on the intern program because that is a significant recruitment intake to Senate membership.
Follow up. Granted.
Wait, does it have to do with my previous question?
No.
Okay. Would you consider it appropriate to reconsider like JCOC fundings for, if like, oh, that's hypothetical. I believe JCOC funding was rescinded from.
That sounds kind of debate-like there.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, we can talk about it in committee.
Director Kuchera.
In line 291.
Sorry, Goose.
I know, it just feels kind of saying that. You talk about for phase 2 having mandatory weekly meetings, but to my knowledge, that's the only place where that's listed in the document. Hopefully this week, I don't know if you have an idea, hopefully this week we can talk about what those mandatory weekly meetings are, but what's your thought process behind that?
So I would direct your attention not only to 291, but also to 279, where that is also listed. That should be in the updated agenda. But basically, again, These are the same requirements as the current intern program, right? We require attendance. Follow up.
Follow up granted.
What would the purpose be of the phase 2 mandatory weekly meetings if the education occurs in course in phase 1?
So I'll refer you to line 74.
I might also suggest you refer to Jordan Martin.
Sorry, go ahead, Jordan. Sorry.
I think there's maybe a confusion on what these meetings are. If I'm correct in assuming, I think these meetings are this meeting, the Student Senate meeting, correct? Or
That is not
Is
correct.
it that meeting right before, the 6 p.m. one?
Yes. So line 74 outlines in the responsibility of the Phase 2 intern coordinator that they shall also hold regular meetings of continuing interns in order to assess their experiences with the program and promote peer-to-peer collaboration. Refer to Jordan.
So part of the discussion between the combination of the AFP program and the intern program was talking about that relationship building and what that would look like, by taking away some of that intern program structure with the weekly meetings that they have, where they're kind of all able to get together and have discussions. So although the 5 sessions serve as information for SGA, we all know there's a lot in SGA to learn. So kind of continuing that education throughout the year while also adding in supplemental resources for them, as well as bringing in speakers, doing that cabinet rotation, as well as the judicial branch, so they're able to continue to get that education throughout the year and stay connected to Senate, so they choose.
Sorry, question, Cox City Rossenpour.
Anywhere in this, do you outline a consequence for missing those mandatory meetings?
Yes. So lines 99 through 101, again, the same policy that we follow right now, subject to expulsion according to the Student Senate standing rules.
Intern coordinator Jewel. Intern Javid.
Hi, my question is about, like, some of your reasoning for wanting to create, like, this new sort of program, is to increase, like, the participation of, like, minority groups who are currently unrepresented in SGA. What is it specifically that this would be doing differently than the intern program? Because, like, in the way that it's outlined, here, it doesn't seem like there's nothing, like, specifically stated about, engaging minority groups, like, in terms of what we're doing, like, in the program. My question is just, like, what is this doing differently than the intern program in order to specifically engage the minority groups, because it was listed as a reason?
So by minority groups, meaning the groups outlined in the second whereas clause?
Like 13, yeah, line 13.
Okay, yeah.
Like, what's different about this program that the intern program, like, was unable to do?
Yeah, I would say, and any member of the committee can feel free to jump in, but I would say the access. By no means are we trying to, like, preach an affirmative action-esque program here. Like, really what we're trying to do is provide access to as many students as we possibly can. And I think that in order to get the best students in this room, that is to provide them that access. For them to make the choice themselves that they want to continue on in SGA, and that we're not making that choice for them. Follow up. Follow up granted.
Follow up granted.
Do you think that just adding the ability for more people to join in, that would be solving the problem or helping solve the problem of the minority participation, like, in relation to, like non-minority participation, I guess?
There's a couple people trying to jump in. I'll refer to Tendai.
So, in terms of minorities, one of the problems is that some of these minorities are at a disadvantage in terms of when they put in their application request. Like, they'll have great experience. For example, international students, some of them are not first English language speakers, but they probably have had some great leadership skills to be able to follow the program. So when these applications in the regional intern program, when they get, like, I guess, scrutinized, I think sometimes we look at the grammar and trying to figure out where it is. So I feel like with this program, with this new AFP, this new proposal.
Intern program.
The new intern program proposal, I believe this one would at least give guess you can say flexible for people to come and attend, and I guess it will kind of like be able to, because most people would say, oh, they don't have time to attend and all that kind of stuff, but I think it will give them at least the flexibility and time to be able to attend some sessions.
I know Jordan wanted to talk about that.
I think you bring up a really good point about the fact that this isn't trying to change what the intern program provides for students. Like the goal was not to take away what the intern program is and does, but rather just fix the con of the fact that we're only able to take 35 interns at a time each year, and that limits it to just the fall. So if you don't know about SGA until your professor tells you in the middle of October, or something happens where you know about it in October, then like that allows you to then join in kind of mid-semester. So catching those students throughout the year, I think is really helpful.
For Coxley Rustenpour.
All right, I'm kind of just curious. If you were an intern, raise your hand. If you were referred to the intern program by someone who was in SGA, keep your hand raised. So the advantage of having someone you know in SGA is huge, and this kind of gets rid of that as well. Where like I didn't know anyone in SGA when I ran, so I feel like I'm almost an anomaly. And this sort of gets rid of that and lets you learn about SGA in a more organic, natural way through involvement around campus, and then start attending the intern program.
Question or refer? Refer to Stephen.
So what does this solution do that the intern program doesn't? The biggest thing is selection process. I've sat in the room as people select interns, and the process terribly puts juniors, seniors, graduate students, non-traditional students at a disadvantage, at a significant disadvantage. The purpose, so by doing away with selection, we sort of welcome those people in to come learn about the process. One of the biggest things that the intern program tries to do is identify and train up the potential future leaders of student government, but at the same time, this sort of 5-week initial course says that we really value an educated populace. If you're interested, you can come on in. In addition, these courses would start at different times during the year. So if you didn't like get interested in student government at the beginning, that's okay. If there was, forgive me, God forbid, another racist incident on campus, or a homophobic incident on campus, and you were like, what can I do to make this campus better? Then there would be that sort of program you could start in the middle of the year instead of just being at the beginning.
So that answer your question?
Yeah.
Further questions, Senator McIntyre?
I just want to know if the special committee on membership would be meeting again before next Senate meeting.
Yep, Sunday at 2 p.m. every week.
I just want that information to be known to people.
Yeah, and
Senator-
on that point, sorry, Jonathan.
No,
On
you
that
got
point, I would love it if anybody interested in this bill, in the final copy of this bill would come to committee. It'd be great to hear your voice.
Senator Tuttle?
Did the committee discuss continuing the intern program as is and then expanding the fellowship program to look like a model similar to this?
For that one to Jordan.
Yeah, so that was something that we had originally talked about, or Robert and I talked about when we brought this idea forward, because I really care about the intern program and I wanted to see it kind of continue as it is, just being attached to what it's been previously. But in kind of going down that path, I think it would create a divide between those two groups, which is not what we want from this program. Even if we try the hardest to make sure that they overlap in some ways and share different meetings or things like that, there's ultimately going to be these two different groups. So trying to kind of take the best parts of both of them to put them together to try to create an intern program that works for all students and for SGA as a whole was kind of the point. Does that answer your question?
A follow-up?
Unrelated, but what made the committee decide on a 5-week course? Was there like, you know, why 5 weeks? Why not 2 or 10, or like how did you come up with that number?
Well, for Raj.
Yeah, so like you said that we do have multiple sessions, one of them being in the spring semester. We have a deadline and obligation to educate as many people as we can prior to election deadlines. Being due to marketing efforts coming into the spring semester, 5 weeks was the most time allowed that we could do to properly educate. We couldn't go 6 weeks because we then would potentially miss the election.
I would also add, that a lot of this proposal, I mean, obviously was based on the work of the Accelerated Fellowship Program, which was 4 sessions. And a lot of what we found there translated into the decision that we're making now, right? We found that it was a little bit abbreviated, it was a little bit rushed, and we really felt as if that 5 weeks would give us a good window of opportunity, right? And that 4 weeks was really just an arbitrary number that the special committee kind of, made the decision. We were like, how many weeks do we have left? And there were 4. So I hope that clears up that question.
Chair Nordstrom.
Could you just clarify real quick what, like, those 5 sessions would look like content-wise? I think that would provide a lot of clarity for like,
Yeah.
similar to what the AFP was, or I don't know.
I mean, I would say that
The responsibility of the short-term coordinator or phase 1 coordinator.
I'll refer to Raj.
Yeah, so that would be, it would potentially be modeled after the Accelerated Fellowship Program, but it's the obligation of the phase 1 intern coordinator in accordance with the phase 2 coordinator to determine the curriculum and speakers in which those 5 weeks would happen.
Yeah, and I would just say, similar to that last question, pretty similar to the Accelerated Fellowship Program.
Yeah, can you
Refer to Miranda.
go ahead and go over what was covered in the AFP this year? That way they can have some context for those sessions.
I can go ahead. This was covered in our presentation, I believe, 2 weeks ago in Student Senate. Maybe last week. I think last week. I don't remember. So we had 4 sessions. The first session was an overview of SGA. Dr. Pat Bosco came and talked about the role of student advocacy. The second session was the legislative branch? Legislative branch. Our very own Speaker of the Senate, Jonathan Puchin, came, held a mock debate over the smoking ban policy from like 2 years back. We also wrote mock commendations. The next session was judicial and elections. Corbin Solacek, the elections commissioner, came and spoke to us. Haley held some mock hearings for judicial. The next was the executive branch, and we came up with our own campus initiatives led by Chief of Staff Jordan Keel. And Jack Ayers also spoke and gave a nice little piece about Topeka. Thanks, Jack.
Intern
Cruz.
Cruz. Awesome.
So I know you said during phase 1 they would have to attend like the certain informational meetings, which would be kind of like our intern meetings.
Mhm.
Would there be an additional requirement to attend Senate meetings?
As is legislated, no.
So they could potentially move into phase 2 without attending Senate.
That is correct. And again, I'll refer back to the presentation by saying that that branch rotation is based on the indicated preferences of those student Senate interns. So if they decide, yep, Senate's for me, right, then that's the route that they'll explore. And I'll refer to Miranda for that one.
Another thing we did for the AFP is with the K-State 360 badge, the required events were all the sessions, but then they had electives so that they could earn that badge, which was like attending Senate, attending committee meetings. Maybe we can incorporate some things with other branches in the future as well, which is an incentive for them to engage with those components as well.
Any further questions?
I'll just real quick add, again, the special committee on membership meets at 2 p.m. Guys, if you have any thoughts or anything, please send them my way. I would love to bring those up in committee so we can have the best bill to put forward next Thursday.
Awesome. With that, is there a motion to consider Bill 78? Intern Coordinator Jewell. Is moved and seconded to consider Bill 78. Will the author please come forward?
All right, Bill 171878, fiscal year 2018, on-campus allocation to the African Student Union by On-Campus Allocation Committee. Whereas On-Campus Allocations Committee received and reviewed the funding request of the African Student Union, whereas the African Student Union will be hosting African Night, which is their flagship activity that brings the Kansas State University community together to discuss topics on Africa's developing culture. If I change that. African Night aims to strengthen bonds among K-State faculty and students interested in Africa as the event serves a platform to share cultural knowledge with people from other continents. The activity also fosters unity and contributes to Kansas State University's diversity commitment. Whereas Dr. Zafirin Diabre will be speaking about social mobilization, a tool for political freedom in Africa. Zephyrin Diabre holds a PhD in management sciences from the Bordeaux Business School in France. He began his career as an assistant professor of management at the University. I'm just not going to try to pronounce that. In 1987, and later joined the private sector as deputy director of Burkina Brewery Company from 1989 to 1992. Since then, Dr. Zephyrin Diabre has served in multiple different political roles. Whereas the event promotes learning about historical and current cultural, economic, and political situations in Africa, the event also provides a great opportunity to learn about Africa's role in modern world towards both social and economic development. This is done through educative sessions where keynote speakers and/or other students share their life and/or professional experiences on such issues. During these discussions, we select an African country and study their success or challenges and draw lessons that would foster unity not only among their citizens but also other Africans, students, and the entire community. As an anticipated impact, the event thrives to get diversity perceived instead as an enriching factor by the campus community in many ways. This event is about learning to generate cultural understanding on campus and create a better place for all students with mutual respect and acceptance. And whereas African Student Union is registered with the Center of Student Involvement as a departmental student organization, and whereas the funds requested by this group and the funding recommendations made are as follows. Project 1, African Student Union, April 5th, 2018, African Night, Union Ballroom, Manhattan, Kansas. There's a request $200 for films, recommended $200. A request $9,240 for the speaker, recommended $9,240. A $200 request for promotional expenses, we recommended $200, and a $110 rent for space, we recommended $110, with a total request of $9,750 and a recommendation of $9,750. Be it enacted that Section 1, African Student Union shall be allocated $9,750 for the event described. And Section 2, upon passage of the Student Senate and signature of the Student Body President, these funds shall be transferred from NISA CONRSV to the account NISA 0015CW of the African Student Union.
Any corrections? Chair Neadery.
On line 48, just needs to be a comma after the 9.
Any further corrections? Senator Martin.
Line 56, I think it should be African Student Union.
Any further corrections? Chair Orth.
You can say they're registered as the, I think, African Students Union.
Okay, so the other lines then should be changed throughout the rest of the bill.
Sweet. Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
I think in your registration they have wrong. It's actually registered as African Student Union, not Students Union.
Yeah,
We'll get it sorted out. And we'll have it ready for you all next week. Any further corrections? Any questions for the author? If not, is there a motion for Bill 79? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
Consider Bill 79.
It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 79. Will the author please come forward? Caucus Leader Rostenport.
I move all the remaining authors be allowed to summarize.
Is moved and seconded to allow all the remaining authors to summarize. If there are no objections, the remaining authors will be allowed to summarize.
Awesome. So this is Bill 171879, allocation to the International Coordinating Council. They are having multiple events through the week of April 5th or April 8th. And it's an international fashion show, international game day, international parade, international cultural exhibition, international talent show. And they came to us looking for funding for these events. Wasn't very expensive for each of them. They have a good participation from students last year, and we're hoping to get the same for this. They requested $666 for promotions. We recommend $666. $685 for rent. We recommend $685. Total of $1,351. The same that we recommended. And yeah, pass it.
All right, are there any questions on Bill 79? Any questions? If not, will the author of Bill, or is there a motion for Bill 80? Speaker Pro Tempore Mignani.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 80. Will the author please come forward? And you are allowed to summarize.
All right, Bill 80 by the Travel Allocation Committee. It's a travel allocation for the Kinesiology Association for graduate students on campus. They're going to San Diego, California from April 20th to 25th for their 2018 Experimental Biology Conference. We felt like this is a really good conference with a lot of knowledge and leadership, and they get to hear from a lot of industry professionals there about stuff. And what really caught our eye was like the hands-on stuff that they're going to be learning about with muscular dystrophy, obesity, and diabetes research. So this is a really good bill in our point of view. There's 10 students going, and they requested $1,000, and we recommend the full $1,000.
Is there any corrections on Bill 80? Any questions? If not, is there a motion for Bill 81? Senator Papoon.
Move to consider Bill 81.
It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 81. Will the author please come forward? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani.
Are we able to just consider all bills before the main bill?
I don't believe so. I think we have to take them up one at a time. Take it away.
All right. Bill 81 by the Travel Allocations Committee is to the KSU Rotaract Club. There's actually 2 trips that they're going on. They're taking 6 members to the Youth Leadership and Awards, and then 4 members to the Rotary International Convention. We thought these were both really unique conferences. They're going to have breakout sessions, leadership training, sessions on project management and philanthropy as well. So they requested $600 and $400 for a total of $1,000, and we decided to fund $575 and $400 for a total of $975.
Any corrections to Bill 81? Caucus Leader Rostenport?
Rotaract is misspelled every single time. And I can give you all the line numbers if you want it.
I think that's how they spelled it.
It's Rotarakt.
Ooh, sweet. We will get that corrected on everywhere. So. Any further corrections to the bill? Any questions on Bill 81? Oh, sorry. Senator McIntyre?
Was there a reason why the last $25?
Yeah, they had requested for food, and we can't fund food.
Sweet. Any further questions or corrections to Bill 81? If not, is there a motion to Bill 82? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani. It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 82. Will the author please come forward?
Bill 82 is to the Minorities in Agricultural, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. So we're sending 10 members of their organization to their national conference in Greensboro, North Carolina. At the conference, they are going to have some leadership sessions, but more than that, they're going to have professional development, career exploration workshops, and just some networking with professionals. They requested $1,000, and our recommendation was $1,000.
Are there any corrections to Bill 82? Are there any questions on Bill 82? If not, is there a motion for Bill 83? Chair Neatery.
I move we consider Bill 83.
It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 83. Will the author please come forward?
Bill 83 to the Plant Pathology Graduate Student Club. So basically, they're taking 15 members from their student organization to go on a tour of DuPont Pioneer headquarters in Iowa. We thought this was pretty unique because they said here on campus they get a lot of like applied research, but not an industry perspective. So being able to tour this company would kind of give them that other side of it. They requested $1,000, and our committee's recommendation was $1,000.
Are there any questions, or are there any corrections on Bill 83? Are there any corrections on Bill 83? If not, is there a motion for Bill 84? Speaker Pro Tempore Magnani. It's moved and seconded to consider Bill 84. Will the author please come forward? Take it away.
Bill 84 is to the Student Alumni Board. They're taking 10 members to the Council for Advancement and Support of Education Affiliated Student Advancement Programs, and there's that abbreviation there. So basically, this is a really unique conference. This is actually where the whole K-State Proud idea came from. So we're hoping that they can go to this conference, network with other colleges, get that leadership aspect, and then workshop as well. They requested $1,000, and our recommendation was $1,000.
Sweet. Are there any corrections on Bill 84? Are there any corrections on Bill 84? If not, we have gone through all of the introduction of legislation. Director Kuchera? Yeah, are there any second open period speakers? Director Kuchera?
I know we didn't have enough people to vote on the constitutional amendment, but I did want to recognize a guest that we had with us, Derek Lawson, the president of the Graduate Student Council, came and visited tonight. So I want to thank him for being Derek will be out of town next week to hopefully vote on the bills. So come back, show up at the Senate, but also if you have questions, stick around and feel free to ask Derek or I about any of those. Any questions?
Any questions for Director Kuchera? Seeing none, are there further second open period speakers? If not, we'll move into reference of legislation. Bills 78 and 79 will be referred to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. Bills 71, 72, 80, 81, 82, 83, and 84 will be referred to the Travel Allocations Committee. Bills 73, 74, 75, and 76 will be referred to the Privilege Fee Committee. Exec will see Resolution 54, and the Special Committee on Student Senate Membership will see Bill 77. With that, we'll move into second roll call.
All right, make this quick. Adams, Akers,
Here.
Alberts, Anders, Arnaldi, Bergston, Bowler, Vickerood, Cafera, Dinez, DeMaranville, Elliott, Flores, Fuller, Garcia, Garrity, Grandy, Hendrickson, Hyen, Hughes, Jackson, Jewell, Kallenberger, Kelly, Kidd, Klein, Maples, Markle, Martin, McDermott, McIntyre, Mertens, Meyer, Nichols, Nedry, Nordstrom, Orth, Ogren, Penny, Papoon, Pitts, Pruitt, Rostenpour, Swanson, Tedrow, Thomas, Tuttle, Valdez, Works, Zwick, Harp, Hines, Bothwell, Carpenter, Cruz, Dahl, Grover, Hornung, Horton, Hoskinson, Houghton, Jabin, Keekly, Karanja, Kellerman, King, McAdam, Malmberg, McCandless, Meinhardt, Peckert, Pelton, Putnam, Roth, Rodriguez, Savarino, Shao, Chumlin, Wheeler, Whitmer, Witzke, Syke. All right, have a good evening.
Is there a motion to adjourn before everybody leaves? Senator Papoon.
We adjourn the same time, same place next week.
If there are no objections, we'll be adjourned.
Next week.
I know. No, they just use that and I'm like, okay. What's the break? I explained. Explain it to him. always one. Well, because technically there are no right? Like they, you have to, yeah, so I just want to know if you were. So it should be an issue.
Yeah, well, we signed up on Sunday, so.
They did have like. So it's
Before this. My sister's name.
Of course, she asked me. My point is, I just want to
People come
you first. Thanks, guys. All right.
Just like you brought it up. Hi, what do you need? Are you gonna stress me out? You're gonna stress me out, I just don't want to what? Are you positive?
You know what, it's probably 8 minutes for that.
Yeah.
So that would probably.
Is it not?
Which kind of big fish? So this point. Well, that would be. I want to actually be able to run and rather than so I guess my question is, so
Do you want? Will you forward none of those
because I ended up.
Oh, yeah.
fair.
to, fellowship class. Yeah, I just wanna see like, what's really important, like,
Bill said, here's the way we improve this. So, when we're done, so, a couple weeks ago, we came over.
So graduate is the 8th.
Okay, I'll let you know. He said he takes it. He's in his office right now.
Okay,
So
so
that-
getting out.
college-
Okay.
He told me the overall, which we had 4 sessions. 7 students came out 4 sessions. But I was just going to do all of them. I'd assume not, though. I mean, I'd assume not. Since Redmond has its own, most of them are. So, what I'm saying is,
I would assume.
we can't.
I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? Something we just.
I don't mean it constantly.
No.
We also need to get it done.
That's the main thing. And the way that people run. Never had. You said. But being at the thing there's definitely SGA. That was a long shot. Educational out, and then also a lot of. It's not educational out. That is efficient. Occasionally Bill would do like.
You do one for me.
But like, it was
That.
So I'm gonna pass.
If we wanna make this legislation
That's
happen
how we're.
this semester for this term, it has to be an all-day by fall.
This is more multicultural students.
Yeah.
Give yourself. Not a problem.
So you put this in, yeah. Did you-
my only concern is that if like, if one of our main reasons.
Yeah, maybe she would just say.
Was
The
to,
email
like,
passing
you know, making it
Well,
more
It's
fair.
whatever, so,
It's 10 o'clock at night.
It's based on.
oh, it's cool, because Mark's there, his, I don't know his brother.
Right.
Still like that, right?
So, but,
If you,
That's not.
however you want
And
to do it.
like, when I say that, I'm just referring to like the entire.
Well, don't think that.
Listed in the whereas clause.
Yeah, now.
And that's what.
Thank you. No problem. I appreciate it. So you guys have a good.
Yeah.
You want me, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to tackle?
So, yeah, my, kind of, we're not really going where I brought my wife
In these
to
ways,
this.
but I
oh, that's where you're
don't
from.
have any problem
Yeah.
making legislation necessarily.
Do you want me to,
An idea is that
are you gonna tell me?
Just get help.
Overlay,
Hopefully we have more people.
I think that
from-
those will still.
I wouldn't mind.
Siblings.
It's kind of this like, it's as a boys club.
I agree with you.
So my concern is that
So do you want me to?
people out, not just by like,
I
the
have
stuff,
no
but by
problem.
like the way we look at our. So like my concern is that,
Yeah. I just described all of this.
all aspects.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's a good.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all the work.
I still feel, I just, my concern is that we create this and then people try to
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. A lot of people who like, white people.
You too.
And then, okay, well, if you solve that problem. So what I'm thinking is
And
just
then
data off like,
Adrian and.
Because I already proposed it. I already told him. And he's. So he said he's open. So it's coming
What are you doing next year?
He wants to know exactly what he wants.
So I told him, and then I want this. I'm gonna have.
Cool. What's your, are you making?
Yes, sir.
So what are you gonna do with that? Like,
Here, and then.
Do you have lunch?
Presentation. Yeah, matches.
Review it.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Send it to me tonight and I'll review it.
I missed it last week.
You're welcome, baby.
So are you like left anywhere?
We're gonna get it to him, we always do.
Anywhere.
That's I think it's not for execution of the program and its boundaries.
I'm Kyla, by the way.
I don't want to feel like.
Nice to finally meet you.
Sorry, I'm a hot mess today. Again, I apologize for not being an exec. Of course, this happened like the one time. I know. Yeah, and so, of course, the one time that's all good and I have
We'll see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh no.
Yeah, so I don't understand. Are you saying that you like?
Legislation. I'm a big, I love
So this is an important message. So we need to bring.
And that was the thing, all of us were like, it's like a great idea to be like, or send it to people and ask them to show up. So we do need to go.
I got mine started.
Right. And that was like.
Yep, great, good deal. Glad to see what's happening on that.
Hey,
Right.
I'm sure he is.
Hey, do you get my email today?
I did actually draft, I was drafting it. So I will send it to you. I'll send it to you.
I feel like my list is like empty without you.
Hey, why don't you your docs today? Like, wait, why is it always when I realize that?
Yeah. Don't use it much, no need to.
Nothing personal. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, no, it's that
They're
awareness,
like,
which
we
is
can't.
still hard.
So she's a P. I'm thinking that she's not
To
my landlord does
convince
not
people
love.
and that we have, like.
But she's free now. How much do
And I will
you
be
think?
walking to engineering and spending the next.
Oh, yeah. And our other dog was from before this, but
This is one of them. He was here to say, hey.
okay, that's cool.
We need to make sure we do outreach.
Yes, but only for a little bit, because like you, if you're a identity, like, just
I don't
because
think-
everyone has this reminds me of I feel bad that like, we
Just
didn't
because
know
everyone
either,
has
I feel like we
equal
should.
rights doesn't mean that they have equal ability to enjoy those rights. Yeah, or something like that. There's protections of.
Right.
I totally agree with you. I don't think
It's just so many like different.
fellowship.
Oh, that's right.
If it's good to move in that direction.
Well, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. I think that it was like this large line of be a good move, but I think that it will be. And that's something that like, I'm gonna work with this, or as a tech program, I don't think we'll work with this.
Well, and I think it's a lot of.
There's so many different things,
But
and all these
right
things.
now,
It's just
election's a problem.
Yeah,
By
it's just.
January, everyone's decided whether they're going to continue.
That's not just
Discuss the attrition, people just like not showing up to meetings anymore. And if you get interested in the middle of the year, there wasn't any education process.
This has to be fixed, because I'm tired of being safe.
So why not just make it like intense learning and then figure out whether or not that's the type of organization for you, and then just empower you with the resources to be successful. Because student government is what you make it, so why make you show up to a bunch of meetings?
No, I love it. I think that's great.
Yeah, no, if you have ideas on ways to improve it, totally we want the best legislation, we want the best.
That's awesome.
And I don't think it has to be like mandated by
Right,
legislation
like
that we
nails,
do something like, reach out to these groups, but
Yeah.
I think it would be really great. I think interns like.
Why would you?
I think
realize
more ideas would be
Yeah.
to like maybe
So I
send a couple of people out to
No.
meetings,
Oh, no, not at all. And that was
and
like,
also at like Blue Black and those meetings and just say like, hey,
Hey, let's chat about
to
this.
join and we want you to be interns.
Well, yeah, yeah.
And then what happens, the organizations that
Right.
they're not ultimate.
And the problem is that like.
I've been involved in a lot of organizations. I said, well, let's see what Jack said.
And the problem is that this year is just kind of like, hey, we want you to be involved in SGA, and they're like, okay, what do we do? And you're like,
Yeah.
well, you can sit in the
Yeah,
meetings, or you
exactly. It
can
was
like
just
file
honestly
collection,
one
but
thing.
I think it's really cool to say like, there's a program that you don't have to be, you don't have to like just like walk in
Hey,
and
let's
sit down
actually
and
talk
meet
about this
what's
before we
going on.
pass it.
Like actually something we can say like, here's what you do, and people like.
And I know why, it's okay.
So,
Well, they had,
this sounds like a great either intern coordinator or advocate for the intern program next year. You don't have to be the intern coordinator to help out with it, but I'm saying if you're interested in this sort of thing, maybe, I don't know.
yeah, I'm in arts and sciences.
So I don't know, just start thinking about what you want to do next year, because at the very least, having that voice in there is very good.
But if we can think of a way to write it into legislation to be active, like proactive about reaching out to certain groups.
Oh yeah, well, I think that's the reason why the AFP program this year was so successful, is because we had a person like Rajat, who was in Indian Student Association. He told his organization, and all of a sudden we have Indian students coming out everywhere.
So the idea I had was, what if we require that the speaker pro temp survey on demographic survey be administered by a certain date, like September 30th, and then make it like so that it is something that we need to actively see. All right, what are we lacking this year? How can we be more proactive about it next year?
Hey, that sounds like a great piece of legislation. You were also working on like elections ideas. There's going to be committee formed that includes judicial, that includes the elections committee. You can.
All right, see ya.
See you later.
Thank you for the conversation. And if you have time, come to AF or special committee Sunday.
No, wedding shower. She has a wedding shower at the same time. No, or like wedding shower for someone else.
Okay. Yes, let me know.
So what I would say is, do you have your ideas for elections written down?
Yes.
Can you send those to me, and then maybe I can tell you what's the best way to go about that?
Okay. I can briefly talk to you through it right now. Okay.
I can walk with you out to the car or something.
I'm
Are
on
you
my
an
but
I can try to.
I can give you a.
I can try to.
I can give you my elevator pitch. That was.
Yeah. 2 seconds.
I'm the only one that gets irritated when they lock these wheels.
No. Try to push one of these things to organize it. Yeah. Didn't budge. Really annoyed me. For no good reason. So what are we doing, forum? Forum? Well, something about just need to get rid of the tables that we have outside. And I'm not 100% sure if it goes early or not. And we don't have that much to do.
So we can just kind of clear all the shit that we have outside.
Better than wheeling chairs around. There's 3 more back in there.
Ah, shit, they got all those black wires in the back.
Yep. Nothing's ever the way you want it to be.
So, actually, I've got that down in my folder thing. No.
Hey, erase the screen. Bad boy.
I'm sure you can figure it out. Maybe. Computer. Oh.
That could be it.
Oh, sweet. Got me a new highlighter. Thank you. Thank you. Did not. Are you sure? I may have had sexual relations with that woman. Poor Bill. The last couple we're gonna have to pull out of this room and stack them up there.
Carson, how fun would that be visiting Tiff and Spill Church?
I've only done that once.
Ah,
Yeah.
and stacking them all over again.
Yeah, well, the problem was we were outside and it fell at me.
Oh.
No, we weren't outside, we were inside, but it still fell at me. It was like my second day. You know the cart that we only stacked 12 on?
Yeah, you stacked more than 12.
I did not stack shit. However, somebody had stacked like 30 on the motherfucker.
Oh my god. Was this before it had its label?
There was a very, very, very tiny label on it, hence why I got the bigger label on it. It's like, yeah, go ahead and take that. I'm like, okay. Second I touch it, whole thing just like, and I'm like, yeah, fuck that. Okay. My lord. Got any bags on you?
Nope. It's okay. Oh, will this closet have one?
Yeah, it should. We gotta go get some 8-foots anyway.
Huh?
So we gotta go get those 8-foots anyway.
Fuck, that's right.
Yeah.
We put linens on those bastards or just.
Yep. That should already be down there.
Steve said there are some Unifits in Qdoba, right?
Yep. It's not too bad. We'll grab those over here and at least that's one last fucking thing we gotta do.
Two.